Celi-bet, the Solomon Brothers series, Volume 2. Written by Leslie North. Narrated by Rebecca Roberts. Chapter 1. Chase Holbrook stepped to the free-throw line. About damn time. Both teams were slow to assemble on the lane markers. 1 minute left, blowout by his team, the Pittsburgh Alloys. Most of the fans fleeing for their cars before slushy late-season snow flew. The 19,000-seat arena was a near ghost town. All game, he had argued with the refs for not calling Tennyson's flagrant fouls. The Raptors' golden boy, Tennyson, was the LeBron of Hogtown, which wasn't saying much. Anyone with a little game and a desire to make big free agency bucks could be the cream that rose to the top of the league's worst team. Tennyson brought a thug mentality and little regard for where his body crashed down from the boards. Chase knew. His right arm and instep had intimate knowledge of the guy's elbows, knees, and testicles for the past 40 court minutes. Salty sweat drizzled past his lips. His right arm tweaked. Chase drilled his signature 5 dribbles into the varnished wood at his feet and planted his toes. Like any other shot he'd done 1,000,000 times. Like any other net-only shot that made the sweetest sound hushing through the rim mics and made him the most upwardly mobile offensive player in the NBA. Like any other free throw in his streak of 38 no misses. The carpy muscle in his forearm seized. The ball's leather slipped from his slick grip. The ball reacted as if he were a grandmother with arthritis who had shot with her bunions. His stomach dropped to his nuts. Total fucking airball. Chants rose from the Raptors fans behind the goal. Airball! Muttering out a fuck you on the close-up camera angles of a national broadcast network wasn't an option. Chase was nothing if not a gracious player. He lifted a diminutive, almost celebratory hand, as if to say, "My bad," and flashed his smile that always boded well for his alt career, modeling. His point guard, Tarek, kept a tally reminiscent of It's a Wonderful Life. Every time Holbrook smiled at the camera, 10,000 women lost their panties. Inside, however, he stewed. Tennyson should have been ejected for the latest hit. The shot should have been ruled a technical. Chase swiped his palms on the ass of his shorts and set his second shot. "Airball!" taunted the crowd. Damned if it wasn't some fans in Pitt's blue and gold, too. So much for loyalty. A smattering of noisemakers in red and black wiggle sticks snagged his attention, but only for a moment. He made a deal with the rim, dribbled 5, and released. Swish. Coach called a timeout to put in rookies. A cacophony of referee whistles sounded. At the bench, Chase returned Tarek's discreet hand smack. Not his fucking grin. The shitstorm of smack talk for that missed shot would be relentless. He toweled off his face, turned out the coach's game plan for the rookies. Having taken them to a 26-point lead, what he'd put up by halftime, he had earned the right to check out early. Thing was, what was left of the crowd wasn't checking out early. Fan noise swelled, signaling something other than the dry, competitionless play that had dominated the second half. Tarek nudged Chase's elbow. He followed Tarek's line of attention to the free-throw line Chase had just evacuated. The Alloys mascot, Bolt, wiggled its psycho-furry black ass with an embellished bump and grind hardly appropriate for a beaver-panther-lunatic hybrid, and the 10-year-olds left in the crowd and took a shot. An exaggerated airball. The remaining fans howled, berserk with laughter, loudest they'd been in 30 minutes of play. Even Tarek gave an appreciative clap. Perfect. Just ripe. Chase's face steamed off its sweat. Bolt made a grand gesture of bowing to all 4 directions in the stands. The traitorous ref bounced past the game ball back to the mascot. The Bolt lined up for another free throw, did 4 rump shakers, back past the 3-point arc, turned and took a backwards granny shot. Swish. The crowd roared and rose to their feet. Chase had put up 38 points in the game, and this roadkill gets the noise. "Why they stay, baby," said Tarek, grinning ear to ear. "Genius." Chase didn't think it was genius at all. In fact, he fucking hated mascots. Most of the time they were creepy and made kids cry. He dropped into his courtside seat, his eyes burning a hole in the side of the costume's head as it made its way off the wood behind the north glass, high-fiving anyone within reach. It wasn't the first time Bolt had ripped him on the court, but it sure as hell would be the last. At the end of game buzzer, he went straight for the Alloy's tunnel where he'd seen the fuzzy goon disappear. No media interviews, no words of encouragement for the rooks that had just finished the team strong. Nothing but a score to settle that had zero to do with basketball. He caught sight of the mole-like, fox-like backside paddling into the restricted hallway to the locker room, still high-fiving, staffers in blue and gold polos, Alloy players, trainers, even the chef responsible for keeping them all sleek and happy. Chase jogged faster and caught up to Bolt, just as the helmet head lifted clear of the inside body. Hands clamped on the costume's hairy shoulder, Chase stopped the mascot's progress to the inner labyrinth. The perky little gymnast inside, with the pigtails and a wad of green gum snapping between her molars, blinked back her surprise. "Sup, Holbrook?" "The fuck was that?" Her pixie face contorted into a mask of pity. "Looked like a whiff to me, stud. Bad one at that. Probably make the ESPN lead story. Worst shots in NBA history." Chase gnashed his teeth. "I meant your little show out there." "Great shot, wasn't it?" Tarek smacked Chase on the back before engaging in a rehearsed and rather intricate celebratory dance with the mascot girl, whatever the hell her name was. "Check you later, sweet thing." Tarek rejoined the tide of Alloy players streaming toward the locker room. Mascot girl beamed a perfect row of miniature teeth, until she turned back to Chase. She rolled her eyes and removed the remainder of her costume, bouncing and writhing in a magnificent display of sweat and inept undressing. And zero tits whatsoever. "No more singling me out, you hear? I can have you fired faster than you can squeeze out of that, whatever the hell it is, costume." "It's a muskrat," she rallied confidently, before her brows twisted and her gaze crumbled. "I think." "It's hideous, and it smells like vomit and sweaty balls on the inside." She took an exaggerated whiff, all grin and flared petite nostrils. "Kinda like your career, if you don't get that free throw under control. Hey, the fans love me, the owner loves me. I'm sorry if your fragile ego doesn't feel the same. I forgive you for the threat. I'd kiss you to prove it if I didn't smell like sweaty balls. Night, Holbrook." On her way past him, dragging the furry carcass, she played smack and cup Chase's ass with Bolt's paws. Again. He counted at least 5 times she'd done that this season for cheap laughs. On national TV. "What the?" He scrambled out of her grip, surprisingly tight for a nothing-to-her girl. "What kind of crappy-ass mascot makes fun of the home team players?" She stopped short and gave him a mock salute, complete with a gum bubble explosion. "I don't make fun of all of them. Just the special ones." Her special smacked of sarcasm. "What the hell did I ever do to you?" "Hello? GQ interview? Playoffs last season? Ring a bell?" "No." "You said, and I quote, 'The current mascot is only entertaining to kids and the mentally challenged.'" Chase smirked, a fresh wave of appreciation for the quote washing over him. "I did say that." "There's nothing funny about that. You alienated an entire group of people who already have enough struggles in life. Not to mention, it isn't true." She lifted her chin, a weak show of righteousness. "Everyone loves Bolt." He shook his head, wishing it were as easy to shake this irritating girl from his space. "Stay away from me. Pretend I don't exist on the court." "Shouldn't be too hard, since you're more famous for your mattress skills than your game skills." For a fraction of a second, he considered ripping the costume from her hand and shredding it with his hands. Would assaulting fake muskrat pelt be a violation of the league's code of conduct? He resisted the urge. He had to take a monster leak and simply no longer had the energy to match her word for word. He made a beeline for the locker room. "Holbrook." He paused and squeezed his eyelids shut, braced himself for her next insult. He refused to give her the satisfaction of turning around. "Great game, really. 38 is two better, right?" Her voice was new, quieter in the thinning tunnel crowd, wholly sincere. His instinct told him to nod, acknowledge the compliment in some way. But he was fast learning with a crazy wild card like her, a millimeter given would turn into a fast break the length of a court. He lifted his jersey collar, rubbed the sweat from his lashes, and continued on to the locker room, where he showered, dressed, and said his goodbyes to the squad, every one of whom had grown to expect the performance he exhibited against the Raptors. Appreciation ran in short supply by this stage of the season. As it turned out, Bolt was the only one the rest of the night to mention that he had blown past his personal scoring record. Chapter 2. Washing Bolt was a 3-hour endeavor. Removing the wire structures, industrial washing machines and low-heat dry cycles, and a grooming routine that would shame a Hollywood starlet. The ones that Chase Holbrook dated, with their airbrushed skin and rehearsed pouts that made them look more constipated than sexy. But Willow wouldn't trade this gig for nearly anything. Except maybe a gig with Gordon Ramsay. Guy was all food and testosterone. Yum. As usual, she padded barefoot back onto the Alloy's empty court and worked on her routine while Bolt tumbled, floppy ears over tail, through the laundry cycles. With back-to-back home games, she needed to work out the spacing of the trampolines for her next halftime show, so she didn't make the highlight reels for the wrong reasons. She caught sight of Tarek as he was leaving, a duffel large enough to smuggle a body tossed over his shoulder. He hugged her, despite him being freshly showered and smelling like a hot cabana boy, and her smelling like, well, sweaty balls, apparently. "Hey, did your mom try that Australian cream on her joints?" she asked. "Loves it. She wanted me to thank you. Says they can't smell her coming now at Wednesday choir practice." "She's a classy Southern lady. She should smell like magnolia, not menthol." "Need a ride?" "Not finished yet. Walt said he'd stay and lock up after me. I brought him lasagna." "You still need to cook for me. When's that gonna happen?" She didn't want to admit she no longer had a kitchen. As of yesterday, she'd been evicted and was living on the couch of her mother's 81-year-old friend. Estelle needed Willow's money more than that crooked landlord anyway. He didn't need pills to keep his heart beating, if he ever had a heart. "My kitchen is cramped." Not a lie. Metamucil bottles everywhere. A true Cajun feast requires space. "I got nothing but space, sweet thing. After our next jog out to the West Coast." "Deal." Tarek took a few steps toward the exit, then turned back. "Hey, how's your nephew?" "Treatments are just holding back the inevitable, buying him time. He's still begging me for the chance to meet Holbrook. I don't see what Dylan idolizes in him. Guy's nothing but an ego in size 14 shoes." "Chase is, narcissistic?" she offered. Tarek smiled. "Conceited?" He shook his head. "Grouchy and promiscuous." A sharp guffaw lit Tarek's expression. "Aren't those things mutually exclusive?" "Not when you look like an Adonis in track shorts." "I was going to say, misunderstood," said Tarek. "None of us are really our persona. You should get to know him." "I know all I need to know. Even if meeting Chase is one thing that might give him the strength to keep fighting, Dylan is the kindest soul on the planet. He can't endure one more disappointment in his young life." Disappointment is one word I would never use in the same sentence with Chase Holbrook. "Killer jump shots don't count." "I'm not talking about on the court." Tarek continued on toward the exit and pointed at her for emphasis. "Great stuff out there tonight, W. Really funny." "Later." When Tarek wasn't calling her sweet thing, he called her W, more like W on his faint Louisiana drawl. Made her feel a bit like a kindred spirit to the 43rd president, or a badass superhero. From the moment she took over Bolt from Ned Lehrman because he wanted to climb Mount Everest, and a cougar from Italy in that order, Tarek and the rest of the guys had welcomed her like a little sis. But Chase had never been part of that. He had been traded from Sacramento 2 years later with all the mystery and fanfare of royalty. Royalty with an underwear contract rumored to be close to $60 million. For $60 million, she'd eat underwear. Imagine the network of pay-it-forward restaurants that sum would open. She worked her routine until Bolt was dry and Walt got antsy. He had a hot number at the bingo hall, Dottie, who was as slow to warm up as a diesel engine, then fizzled out. By midnight, all bets were off. Willow doubted Walt's security guard prowess. Many late nights exiting the arena, she believed her brief stint with Murder Those Buns and its companion DVD, Slay Those Abs, might serve them both better than his shaky hand on the pistol. But he had been Private First Class Army and a member of Pittsburgh's finest for 30 years. He deserved every ounce of chivalry between them. At Estelle's place, she showered and flopped on a floral print velour sofa that looked as if it had been resurrected from the Golden Girls television set. During a caught-cheating hidden camera show, a commercial for Magnum underwear came on. Chase's abs, so very fine in every way, slid across the screen. The ad was tastefully artsy in black and white, with gaunt supermodels sporting vacuous stares. Willow pressed the back button on the DVR remote and watched it again, before she caught herself looking for the rumored millisecond slippage of the camera angle below his designer-stamped equator. Nada. Pillow pressed over her head as punishment, she growled. No way she would sleep anytime soon. She baked 4 pans of blackberry walnut cake bars for the Smackdown bake sale Estelle's WWF Catholic Charities group, Women Worshipping Fabulously, was having. She considered the flurry of baking minimal thanks for letting her crash on her sofa until she figured out her life. Willow hoped a plan materialized soon. She couldn't help others if she couldn't even help herself. After morning shoot-arounds, Chase felt ambushed. His teammates crowded the Alloys' locker room. Free to shower, work out, chow down, or leave, they lingered for the sole purpose of witnessing the continuing banter Tarek had begun with Chase on the upstairs court moments before. Chase simply stared at the wall of television screens showing NBA highlights from the late West Coast games the previous night. Tarek knew Chase wouldn't talk about the women he dated. Never had since his Kings days. But that didn't stop Tarek from trying to loosen up a few gold nuggets of gossip when Chase's name, or mug, hit the news cycle. Come on, bruh. They linked you with Chrissy LaRue? I caught you coming out of her set trailer on location up north. Chase shook his head. Grainy photo, wasn't me. How many other lanky white dudes she keep around her? Tarek made a disgruntled little tisk grunt sound as he peeled off his shirt. Chrissy. LaRue. He dragged her name out as if it needed any more emphasis. She was a fiery 5'5" red-headed bombshell. Hollywood A-lister. Like People magazine cover, Daily TMZ A-lister. One of Chase's less discreet moments last off-season he regretted to this day. The press seemed hell-bent on putting them together. Chase, however, was hell-bent on shattering the NBA's offensive scoring record. With the Alloys largely out of the playoffs due to a young, inexperienced lineup behind him, and Tarek, the offensive award was still noteworthy and within reach. Silencing dating gossip was one thing, but silencing the collective press who filled the sports squawk shows with the prevailing opinion that Chase had been overpaid in the Kings trade, wasn't worth his hype, and couldn't get the job done for Pittsburgh, was a far richer ambition. Some pro players were lauded for their defense, their electricity on the court, their sportsmanship. Chase could drain, simple as that. Nothing fancy, just consistent. So he vowed to keep his head down, his mind on the game, and drain buckets until no one could touch him. Not even Tarek. Chase looked over at his tightest competition for the offensive honor, and his damn near best friend. Closest thing to a brother Chase had besides Marcus and Henry. But even Tarek wasn't close enough to penetrate Chase's inside world of hungry expectations, detached relationships, and quests to prove himself. Most nights his drive was what kept him awake, not the advances of a beautiful woman. Don't believe it. Chasing the gold, leaving your ass in the dust, has me celibate. No woman until that award is mine. Chase tossed his sweaty practice jersey into the laundry bin. Not this celibate shit again, man. It's a myth. A mental hang-up. You'd be better off climbing up to the top of the Comcast building, pulling down your shorts, and waiting for a unicorn to fly up your ass. More likely, too, given the women who orbit your second-place butt. Rogers, the rookie small forward with an unparalleled appreciation for the game's history, chimed in. Wilt Chamberlain swore by it. Lies, bruh. He never had a celibate stretch in his career, Tarek said. Let's just say Wilt the Stilt wasn't called the Big Dipper for having to lower his head to pass through doorways. He tapped half of Pennsylvania in his day. Probably Booth's mother. Booth beamed at Tarek. After which your mother got sloppy seconds. A chorus of oohs and declarations of owing filled the locker room. Chase laughed, relieved the smack talk had veered away from him. The camaraderie on this team was unparalleled. Chase may have been late to the game, starting at 16, but he'd been on teams year-round for 12 years and had never felt such genuine warmth from his teammates, ever. Science proves it, said Nuno, their teddy bear center with a kid-in-play afro. Study out of Cornell or some shit. No sex leads to peak performance. Brains, body, all that shit. That's jacked, said Tarek. It's like playing constipated. Ain't nothing magic flowing out of those fingertips when all systems aren't firing. Spurs made a Celi-bet in 14, said Wilcox, a power forward covered in tats. Ask me how that worked out for us. Wilcox never failed to remind them he played for San Antonio that season, though played as a relative term. His position had been bench warmer. You telling me you won the championship that year because none of you got laid? Booth said. I can't speak for the others, but the bet was a unifying piece of the puzzle. Man, you just didn't get any because that red nappy-ass hair, said Tarek. Ain't no bet to blame there. Again, more congratulatory smack-down hand slaps. I declare it's time to start our own unifying tradition, said Nunzio. Holbrook's already in. Ain't no championship on our horizon, said Booth. Tarek and Holbrook only ones with a shot at glory this season. Never one to back down from a challenge, which was the primary reason Tarek was all over Chase's tail for Offensive Player of the Year, Tarek turned to Chase. How about it? You and me. A Celi-bet. A unifying piece of the puzzle. Nah, said Chase. Bets are a distraction. I gotta focus. Then what better way, my friend, than to ensure you're at your peak performance? That is, unless you think it's bullshit too. Chase knew it wasn't. For his NCAA streak his senior year at Iowa and the mid-season run for the Alloys last year, the strategy had worked for him. His gaze drifted over to the television screens, where he caught a flash of the photo taken of him and Chrissy at the red carpet premiere of last year's summer blockbuster. If anything, the bet was a performance insurance. And if there was anything he liked less than dating gossip, it was losing a bet to Tarek. Terms? Asked Chase. They both looked to Wilcox, resident expert on such matters. Wilcox shrugged. No sex until one of you breaks the NBA scoring record or the season ends. First one to cave loses the bet. Define sex, said Tarek. 16 other players chimed in various explanations of penetration, dry humping, double penetration, hand jobs, oral, anal. The discussion devolved until someone made a Bill Clinton joke about what is meant. They decided on the clinical definition of intercourse, vagina and penis, though Chase had no intention of allowing any woman near his junk. Any release of testosterone defeated the purpose. How much money? Shooted Booth. Let's make this interesting, shall we? Holbrook has all that tidy-whitey's cash. Tarek paced for show, then stopped for a grand announcement. $10,000. A few whistles, some gasps. This amount seemed to impress those gathered. Chase had this locked. Guaranteed win. Chase extended his hand. You're on. Tarek's brows rose. He shook Chase's hand to seal the bet. Prepare to go down, Magnum. Wait, said Nunzio. How are we going to know? Bet monitors. To be with the player when he's not with the team, offered Wilcox. Each of you names a bet monitor for the other. It's the only fair way." Chase saw the perfect opportunity to pay Tarek back for the time he'd enlisted the Sun's owner to prank him during a charity event, informing him he'd been cut from the Alloys, and asking if he would like to try out for Phoenix's D-League. Chase could name one of his supermodel contacts to tempt Tarek, but the truth was, Tarek was in love with the one who got away, still hoping they'd get back together. If there was a chance they'd work it out, Chase wanted no part of endangering that. The perfect solution materialized. Forget celibacy. Challenge Tarek's sanity. "I name your mother." Tarek slid out a curse and paced away. Guy was always on the move, even more so when he was riled about something. More love from the spectators, hoots, hollers, laughter. Booth did a special dance move out of his nook to high-five Chase. When the celebration quieted, their heads all turned to Tarek in anticipation of his chosen bet monitor. Tarek's eyes squinted, his lips pursed in thought. Chase's stomach soured like he'd run lines for a half hour after eating a 4-course meal. "Come on, man," said Nunzio when the verdict was too slow. "Out with it!" "Willow Bend." Wait, was that a street? Tarek was trolling him. Chase's thoughts backlogged amidst the equally festive commentary surrounding them. Booth danced over to Tarek and shared another high-five. Apparently, everyone knew something, or someone Chase didn't. "Who?" "Mascot girl," offered Nunzio. Chase's awareness slammed back to the tunnel after last night's game, where the sweaty balls girl in pigtails insulted his free throw, his intelligence, and his reputation, all within the span of a minute. No. What do you mean, no? If there was a no option here, don't you think I would have used it on my mama? Woman never met a locked door she didn't bust her way through. Not Bolt girl. She has it out for me. Then you don't gotta worry about banging her, said Wilcox. Record's yours. She'll never agree to it, said Chase, determined to hunt down any excuse to make this not happen. Forget celibacy. This was his sanity at stake. You gotta make her agree. Or you can just lay out 10 grand now. Tarek mimed an ego-filled show-me-the-money pose, complete with a fingertip lick and a Cheshire smile. Chase glanced around at the smug faces of his teammates. No way he was parting a bet within a minute. He picked up a nearby basketball and drilled 5 crisp dribbles into the carpeted Alloys logo. On the court, this made the world drop away. In here, 16 sets of eyes on him made the world more crowded than a capacity playoff game. You're going down, Tarek. He dropped the ball and headed for the weight room. Behind him, Nunzio's gravelly voice whipped the team into a frenzy with 2 words. Bet pool. Chapter 3. The next night, the Alloys beat the 76ers by 3 on home court. Hyper-focused for the in-state rivalry, Chase played his best game in recent memory. Highly attuned to rebounding, blocking shots, and banging in the key. Everything beyond the first rim of courtside chairs ceased to exist. That included Mascot Girl. Until it was time to leave. Tarek's mother had already moved into his place and taken over his bathroom counter with anti-aging serums and home remedies for hot flashes. This shifted odds on the bet pool, with some Chase supporters upping their antes. His 24 hours to secure his bet monitor before he forfeited was almost up. Chase showered and dressed in his regulation warm-ups, emerged from the tunnel onto the court. Someone had said he could find Bolt Girl there long after the media cleared and the cleaning crews began. Arena lights were already half-strength, casting an odd glow on the varnished gold and blue floor and affording him a chance to blend in with the shadows. He wasn't sure which held him back more, asking someone who had a clear distaste for him to move in and ensure he didn't have sex, or the athletic exhibition she put on when she thought no one was looking. She was Cheryl Swoops and a globetrotter all rolled into a gymnast package, alley-oops, airborne twists, vaulted tomahawks. A few times she stumbled. Once she landed ass first on the padded mat, then lay back and stared at the arena ceiling, her chest heaving. She wiped away the sweat from her brow. jogged back to mid-court and tried again. This time she launched off the trampoline and executed a full-on 720 dunk. Holy shit. The flashiest shot Chase had ever done was a windmill. Even that dunk felt odd beneath his skin. He had always left showmanship to others. Saul's advice: respect the game. Make it about the game. Always the game. Truth was, he wasn't sure he had anything but a dependable jumper in him, but he appreciated the athleticism required to pull off the shots that unhinged the crowd. Sure, she used a tramp to make up for height deficiency, but she attacked the net with an authority that totally contradicted her name. Willow. She probably had hippie parents and wove macrame tunics on the weekends with a name like that. If he didn't ask, he couldn't get out of here and get some much-needed shut-eye. He shifted the duffel bag hanging from his shoulder, savored a deep breath, and walked onto the court with zero prep as to what he would say. Repaying her lone compliment in their only other conversation seemed a good start. He snagged her attention as she was starting to break down the equipment. Impressive. Where'd you learn those mad skills? She blinked, taken aback for a heartbeat. He expected a smart-ass response. Instead, civility. 4 older brothers and a lifetime of gymnastics. You do all that with a 50-pound costume on? He set down his bag and helped, carting the first trampoline off once she had folded its legs. For all that Mascot Girl lacked in the upstairs department, she more than made up for on the lower floor. Her black athletic shorts shrink-wrapped an exquisite set of muscular glutes and legs. When she folded in half to do the heavy lifting, he nearly dropped his end looking at the inviting curve between her thighs. He caught himself, horrified, and recalled her savage tongue. Mercifully, this cooled his jets. I try. If I miss, then it turns to comedy. Win-win either way. You ever miss? Hawks last year. Somersault into the post. Chase remembered that game. He didn't remember anything beyond his performance. Ouch. Luckily, Bolt has a pelt that smells like sweaty balls. Cushioned the blow. He winced at her throwback to their previous argument. Best to change the subject. You always stay late like this? I have to sneak in time before the event staff turns the floor for the Penguins. Chase had never thought about it much. What happened after his job was over for the night. They once did a fundraiser for the floor manager whose daughter had leukemia. Hundreds showed up, a huge portion in staff gear. He'd been floored by how many people it took to run this place. He continued to help her break down the equipment until the last piece was secured. She broke the silence. I know you didn't stay to be chivalrous. That's Walt's job. There was an insult there, but Chase was too preoccupied with approaching his delicate subject to acknowledge. He decided direct was best. Mascot Girl seemed to have a knack for bluntness. I need a favor. Ah, here it is. She zipped on an Alloy's hoodie and finished packing the rest of her gear into a messenger bag. Only took you 10 minutes to warm up. Kinda like your first quarter starts? Veins in his neck throbbed. He shook his head and stalked away. Forget it. Wait. She scrambled after him and snagged his elbow. The last thing he wanted to do was to turn around. Mascot Girl was like a menagerie. Never knew what kind of animal or sideshow or crackpot comment you'd get. He'd never been so mystified by a woman. And not in a good way. He'd stalled his progress at her insistence and turned. She offered him a stick of gum. His brain went on shutdown. He'd take Tarek's mother's age serums over Willow's randomness any day. Peace offering? Definitely hippie parents. She unwrapped the foil overlay and made an appalling show of folding a too big stick of gum against her tongue, then slid a fresh piece out of the package for him. I'm sure pounding the court for 40 minutes gives you breath that could knock over a water buffalo. Chase couldn't attest to that. For the first time in a very long time, he felt self-conscious. He had stripped to nothing but cock socks for photo shoots, and here he was, awkward over bad breath. He took the gum and slid it into his mouth. Continue. Although she was only as tall as his pecs, her cinnamon breath reached him on a spicy, warm cloud. It was Tarek's idea, really. That's right. Throw him under the bus for this. We made a bet, and he named you my bet monitor. What's that? Someone to make sure we abide by the terms of the bet. She blew an ambitious pink bubble. It bounced while her evocative tongue waggled inside. The snap almost made him jump. And my responsibilities? You'd have to move in. Her eyes bugged. With you? And be with me when the team isn't, which during the season isn't much. Until Tarek disqualifies himself, or I break the league offensive scoring record. And how does Tarek disqualify himself from the bet? He has sex. The magnitude of the bet dawned in her speckled brown eyes. She rolled her eyes with a magnitude that would have flipped a fairy on the Allegheny. You made a Celi-bet? You've heard of those. Who hasn't? Biggest load of crap in professional sports. Performance is not tied to sex drive. It's just a way for athletes with fragile egos to explain away incompetence and push misogynist blame on the fairer sex. Fantastic. A hippie and a feminist. He began mentally subtracting 10 grand from his bank balance. No way he was living with this woman. His feet were already headed for the exit. Wait. Chase stopped short. What's in it for me? Besides getting to see your smoking hot body every day. Was this girl for real? No filter whatsoever. Still, he felt himself fucking flush. How much is the bet? She asked. He didn't want to say. The amount made him feel like an asshole with too much money. 10 grand. She choked on her gum. Legitimately. Beat-faced and all. For a second, he thought he'd have to give her the Heimlich. That's a lot of underwear, she finally squeaked out. Not as much as you'd think. He couldn't help the slight smile that tried to twitch free. Hold up your end. It's all yours. This isn't about the money. I just need someone to vouch for my free time and run interference on women. Groupies? Maybe it was the slight suspicious angle she regarded him with, or her devilish smirk. His smile loosened. Some, maybe. Bitches be crazy, you know. I'll earn every penny of that 10 grand. That's precisely what worried him. I value my privacy. We'll barely get in each other's way, he hoped. I have a life, you know. I practice here more than anyone. And we have an away game stretch coming up that gets you off the hook. Tarek will cave by then. Who's his monitor? His mom. Willow sucked in a breath through her teeth. Everyone, it seemed, was sympathetic of Tarek's pain on that one. She nodded and popped another bubble. And you went along with me because I'm the least desirable woman you know? It was Chase's turn to choke, this time on her candor. His voice went on injured reserve. We're nothing if not honest, Holbrook. Admit that I'm safe because you'd never, ever have sex with me, and we'll move on. His throat closed. This felt like one of those ghastly verbal snares laid by women to trap men into saying the wrong thing to prove a point. She had nailed the truth, not because he didn't find her mildly appealing, but because he would never bet a woman that got under his skin like a bedbug and called him out on everything. He scrambled for something that didn't make him sound like a bigger asshole than the 10 grand. Tarek said the arrangement would benefit us both, that's all. There, diplomatic, somewhat truthful. And bringing Tarek back in didn't hurt. Tarek adored her. Everyone who knew Willow apparently adored her. Everyone but Chase. I'll consider it, if you help me with something. She fished out a pair of black inline skates from her bag and began lacing them up. Now? Won't take long. She stood and tested the rollers with a back-and-forth shimmy of her legs. You skateboard? Not since 14. Like riding a bike. She grabbed his wrist and led him up to the closest arena aisle, surprisingly adept at rollers on stairs. You'll see. Look, I gotta get home. He tugged back, striving for freedom from the most bizarre, high-energy person he had ever met. Exhaustion burned his corneas. His custom pillow beckoned him. "Think about it. You can let me know in the morning." Willow stopped her upward progress and turned. Her smallish lips did a quirky little twist, somewhere between a sexy pout and a frown that telegraphed extreme disappointment. He had already offered her 10 grand. What the hell else did she want? Above her head, a lit marquee scrolled past his field of vision. Tarek Johns, 32 points. Chase Holbrook, 34 points. Raced to the record books. Holbrook came alphabetically before Johns, and he had more game points. So why was he listed second? His gut ignited. The same burn that happened at tip-off. Chase would win this bet, this record, even if it meant putting up with the whack job girl in a muskrat costume. "What do you want me to do?" asked Chase. Absolute insanity. He thought Willow had been kidding about the skateboard, but she went to a supply closet and pulled out a wide deck with crazy pink dots and lime green wheels. "Used it for a halftime gig once," she offered, by way of explanation, then shoved it into his hands with a conspiratorial smile. She grabbed another massive, empty cloth bag from the closet and took off. By the time he had looped his duffel crossbody, she had flown around the corner out of sight. "Where are you going?" Chase called after her. He tried to launch and failed. "What are we doing?" "You'll see." Her disembodied voice bounded through the vacant hall. He followed because he believed it to be the closest distance between this moment and his soft, ergonomically programmable bed. His bag was entirely too heavy to catch any real speed, but the cleaning crew blasted old-school Metallica, and the air blowing back his damp hair conspired to push him past his comfort level. Willow had been right. It was like riding a bike. Before long, he had regained enough confidence to know he wouldn't wipe out. Coach Perkins's intestines would drop out through his bowels if he knew his lead scorer was risking injury, flying through the arena's circular concourse on a skateboard at breakneck speed. Down a straightway, he caught sight of her at a concession stand, its cage rolled up halfway. She shoved wrapped burgers, boxed pizza slices, popcorn bags, and clear takeout boxes that contained nachos drizzled with nuclear cheese into her empty cloth bag. What the hell? Before he could catch up to her, she blew a kiss to the guy behind the counter, yelled, "I'll bring the book tomorrow," and raced off. She stopped at no less than 6 snack bars, each with the staffer waiting with half-cage anticipation and a wide grin, each supplying her enough food for an entire row of the arena. He trailed her, wordless, baffled, nearly incensed that she would take advantage of the system this way. At the final concession stand, she had run out of room in her bag and started shoving hot dogs and warming sleeves into his hands. "Favor done," he declared. She pointed to the wieners. "That's not the favor." Oh my God. He was never ever leaving here. The arena was the Twilight Zone, and she was Rod Sterling with pigtails. "Willow, I'm done." Chase shoved the plump foil sleeves into her hands, kicked the skateboard to his hand, impressed that he still had the goods for that particular move, and pulled his cell from his athletic shorts. He started to text Tarek. "Rather live with your mother. Bet off." Before he could hit send, Willow called out. "Typical Holbrook. All talk, but he can't put things away. Lakers especially. Go then. Battle the broads on your own. Good luck with that." Her voice was half admonishment, half tease, all irritating. She skated in reverse, her scammed stash like Santa's pack on her shoulders. Had to be at least the weight of Bolt's costume, maybe more. Would serve her right if she got a backache. "It isn't what you think, stud. Come on." She shoved through the arena doors and disappeared out into the night. Chase glanced at the vendor of the nutty Norwegian nut stand, Willow's words echoing in the cavernous space. "Isn't what you think. Come on, on." The round guy in the stained apron shrugged. "I'm going to regret this," Chase said. For a minute, Chase was convinced the blonde spoke no English. Then he smiled, rammed the gate closed, and said, "Not likely, stud." Dude laughed and disappeared into the back room. Menagerie. Chase glanced at his cell screen. "Rather live with your mother, bet off." He clicked off the phone and shoved it in his pocket. Skateboard back on the ground, he followed Willow out the arena doors on the sketchy advice of the nutty Norwegian. Chapter 4. "Does it run?" Chase asked, doubtful. "Of course it runs." Willow's tone was defensive, as if the tan 1971 Vega wagon at the center of the empty parking lot was her firstborn, and he had just insulted the shape of its head. The opening ritual for the reluctant passenger door was a show in itself. 2 well-placed bangs on the outside, a hand crank window roll from the inside, and a foot shove only a gymnast could appreciate. "Get in, it's freezing," she said. Not for the first time since the game, Chase questioned his judgment. Being with Willow was like boarding a swift-moving bullet train headed in the wrong direction, powerless to stop it once it got going, and mildly fascinating in a semi-nauseous kind of way. He expected the car to smell like Julius Erving's game sneakers after walking through a vat of curdled yogurt. Surprisingly, the air freshener spinning on the brisk wind they ushered into the car whirled up a sickeningly fruity sweet scent, until Willow planted her stale snack pack in his lap. "You have a wagon. Can't we put this in the back?" "Not efficient." She focused her attention on starting the car. If the old Chevy's engine had a voice, it would have been an octogenarian with emphysema, gas, and road rage all at once. Chase found himself holding his breath, as if his lack of oxygen could somehow inject the right amount of fuel or make him pass out in a bewildered haze of side-stream fumes. Once her tongue slipped free of her lips in extreme concentration, the 4-wheeled turd growled to life. "Am I gonna pass a random drug test after this?" Legit, he was worried. "I'll have you know that this beaut was overseen by John DeLorean himself, and the Camback Panel Express Edition offers an unparalleled level of privacy in the back." "For stealing?" The food steaming his crotch was still impairing his thought process. "For having sex. So no borrowing it while the bet is on." "No worries there." She pulled out into the traffic streaming by the arena. The Vega hesitated, lurched, and misfired with the aplomb of a 9mm gun. Chase ducked. "It does that on cold nights." He wanted to tell her that the air temperature had nothing whatsoever to do with fuel burning outside the combustion chamber, but he was too busy trying to maintain his post-game power bar in his stomach. Between the sour nacho cheese smell, the blue cloud from the backfire, and her Mario Andretti driving, he barely had the wherewithal to chase a definitive answer to where the fuck they were going. "Willow, slow down. Cops crawl all over this side of town." Mostly due to robberies and murders, but a rampant Vega chase wasn't outside the realm of possibility. "It's good, they all know me." He didn't know what that meant. Did she have a rap sheet? Oh, God. He would be lead story on the morning news. Chase Holbrook, power forward for the Pittsburgh Alloys, wanted in connection with a series of, what? Overnight. "Willow, let me out. Like, here." He pointed to a street corner with a store advertising adult videos and peep shows. She shot him a look like he had asked her to drive with her toes and sing show tunes. "I can't let you out here. This is not a safe neighborhood." No shit. They were 4 blocks from his childhood turf. Saul's gym was as far south as he went. He hadn't been over here in a decade. "Then why are we here?" "This is where we make the most impact." She slowed down and pulled into an alley. "Keep your window up. Sometimes they get grabby." And yet she reached for the driver's side window crank. "Grabby?" Strangled from his throat, the word sounded like the bad end of a prostate exam. His stomach went from mildly cramped to sliced and diced. Chase wondered if the code of chivalrous protection extended to crazy women who asked for crime. He checked the door lock. Twice. "Yeah, they're just excited. Ready?" She held out her hand to him in expectation. "For?" "You didn't think I was taking the nacho cheese to rub all over my body, did you?" He had no words, but he realized she eyed the pack on his lap. He reached inside the bag, pulled out a cold, salted pretzel, and handed it to her. An elderly black man hobbled up to her window. "Hi, Grady. How are you feeling tonight?" "Little hungry, Miss Bend." "We can't have that." She motioned Chase for another pretzel and passed both out the window. "How's that hammer toe?"
"Better with them shoes you got me. Feel like I can dance again."
"Save a rumba for me, will you?" The man beamed.
"Sure thing, Miss Bend."
Chase sank back into his seat. All the anger he had harbored in his gut at the food in her stash dissipated on the cold wind spiraling through the vehicle. She was feeding the homeless. She was feeding the goddamn homeless, and it never occurred to him. Not once. Had he come so far from this existence that he didn't remember any of it? She drove on, windows still down, navigating the side street with care. When a grizzly guy in a Viking mustache and a dress approached her window, she reached her hand out and squeezed his. "You're cold tonight, Sam. Did you try the church I mentioned?"
"They wouldn't let me in."
She reached for the hot dogs she had dropped beside her on the seat and handed him two. "Fill your stomach with this instead of liquor, and there's nothing they won't do for you. You promised me."
"I know."
"I don't want to see you here tomorrow. I want to know you went to Holy Cross. They've been expecting you. Handsomest guy in a dress in these parts."
"Yes, ma'am."
"Love you, Sam."
"Love you too."
Chase's throat tightened at the genuine sentiment between them. Willow drove on. "Sam got a commendation medal for valor in Vietnam. He came out to his children when he returned. They disowned him." Next up was a woman named Millicent, whose spine was so badly deteriorated she looked only at the pavement. Willow told her how fancy she looked in her pink knit scarf, an item Chase strongly suspected Willow also had something to do with, and passed her a lipstick she had rolling around on her dashboard. "I thought this color would go well with your beautiful skin color." She turned to Chase and indicated a carton of French fries, adding in a whispered aside that Millicent had no teeth. This time Chase wished Millicent a good night and waved. The first time he had spoken. He found the rush of the old woman's pretty smile damn close to the rush of a three-pointer. He and Willow made a game of it. He anticipated a snack based on who came up to her car, always in motion, mostly a crawl, rarely stopping, and her telling an anecdote about each person. If she didn't know the person by name, she asked them to introduce herself and Chase. Instead of using his real name, she introduced him as Magnum. For once, he felt like someone who deserved that kind of name. They drove the streets of his old neighborhood until the sack in his lap was empty, and they had fed upwards of 60 people, many of them young, pregnant mothers or children. Chase stopped caring about his fatigue, his early morning shoot-around, the smells that permeated his clothes from the food and the air freshener. He hadn't had this much fun with his clothes on, outside of basketball, since that Vegas trip with Marcus. At one of the street corners, someone with a cell phone snapped a picture with a flash. It broke the spell. If someone snapped a photo, it would be all over the media come tomorrow. Not that he'd done anything wrong, but he had learned over the years that the mantra, all press is good press, just wasn't true. Give people something good, and most managed to twist it into something sinister.
"I'd like to go back to my car now."
Willow seemed to sense it, too. For the first time that night, she was compliant and quiet. They sputtered and backfired all the way back to the arena. She navigated the Vega into the secured lot and stopped in front of his Hummer. The odd thought that one of his chrome wheels was probably worth more than the entire Vega crossed his mind. He became trapped in a surreal place between wringing her neck and thanking her for reminding him of all Saul had done to pull him out of his environment and show him he was worth something. He was reluctant to get out of the car. The cold, the fumes, something.
"How long have you been doing that?"
"About 3 years.
"You do it every night?"
"Most home game nights. I petitioned the Alloy's GM and owner to have the leftover food the vendors would throw away at the end of the night. Told them it would be a great tax write-off, and even better PR. They agreed."
"It's dangerous, Willow. I don't think it's a good idea."
"What do you know about danger? You have security around you 24/7. He leveled a stare in her direction.
"More than you think. That neighborhood was mine once."
She puckered her lips, brow tight, as if she was assimilating this new information. When her expression eased, Her nose tipped upward to the Vega's ripped roof, as if she had exchanged food for haughtiness. Kindness has no geographical boundaries. No, but crime has a definite zip code. He shook his head. There was no sense in reasoning with someone who defied reason at every turn. Just be careful, okay? Might want to get a more reliable car. I'll get right on that once I've paid off the Learjet. Once again, he felt like the asshole with the $90 million 4-year contract. He reached for the passenger door, trying to recall the charm that made it open. Is everything they say about you true? Willow asked. They. He couldn't begin to guess who. Sports commentators, gossip rags, league players, or what, free agency mistakes? Different women every night, overpaid, undertalented, traitor to Sacramento. By the tone of her question, he knew something or someone had cast him in a negative light. Not that he cared what Bolt Girl thought. What do you think? I think Chase Holbrook, leading NBA scorer and playboy about town, wasn't the Chase Holbrook riding shotgun tonight. Her edge had softened. Maybe he had offended her with his car comment. Maybe she had simply run out of her seemingly endless supply of energy. Or, just maybe, he was growing on her a bit. And I believe Tarek, she added. Uh-oh. Chase mentally braced himself. What did he say? That none of you are your image, and I should give you a chance. He nodded. That mean you'll be a bet monitor? I'll think about it. Impulsive people aren't generally prone to thought. And thoughtful people aren't generally prone to impulses. The two of them in a nutshell. Now get out, you're cramping my style, being seen with you. A laugh sputtered free of his lips. As expected, his door wouldn't open. Willow scrambled in her seat so that her bare legs stretched across him and her ass wiggled up beside his hip, full-on childbirth position, no boundaries. He caught a whiff of the air freshener in her wake. She braced against the Vega's frame and pushed with her feet. The door popped open. John DeLorean. John DeLorean. As if his name lent credence to her argument that the shit-brown Vega was a beaut. He unfolded himself from the car, grabbed the duffel he had stashed at his feet, and turned in time to see her lean all the way across the seat, say, "Night, Magnum," and pull the door closed from inside. She peeled out of the parking lot, her tailpipe erupting in gunfire at least twice on the way out of the parking lot. Chase crawled into the plush interior of his SUV, locked his doors, and let the engine warm. He pulled out his cell phone, the text draft to Tarek just under his lock screen. Rather live with your mother, bet off. He watched the blue cursor blink, then hit the delete button. Delete, 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 until the message was gone. Estelle rose before Good Morning Pittsburgh, before the infomercials on television had switched over to regular programming, before electricity was no longer necessary to cut the darkness, before Willow had time to access REM sleep. Someone, somewhere along the way, had convinced Estelle that walking her butt cheeks along the floor, legs extended, forward and backward, was good cardio for her heart. So, every day at 6 a.m., Estelle squeezed her saggy bits into a leotard, a la Jane Fonda, and slayed the shag carpet in front of the couch like a greyhound with worms. When her labored exhale summoned the elderly gods of soft porn, Willow decided she'd had enough. She slipped on her coat and slippers, tiptoed out into Estelle's back porch, and called Dylan. She knew the hospital woke him up early. His sleepy face appeared on her screen. "Nice bedhead," he said. "Where are you?" She couldn't tell him she'd been evicted. No one in her family could know. News would spread like a contagion. She didn't need to give her parents any more ammunition for their argument that her life needed focus. "Outside?" "It's gotta be 20 degrees, I can see your breath." She did her best to blow those fancy gangster smoke rings. Didn't work. "Say hi to Mike." Dylan turned the phone's camera lens to the hospital bed beside him. The two teen boys looked so out of place against walls painted with balloon-wielding pandas. "Hi, Mike," Willow waved. When the camera angle returned to Dylan, she said, "I thought you had a private room." "I gave it up. Some 7-year-old got banged up pretty bad in a traffic accident. Family never leaves his side. My old room had a couch with a fold-out bed. Besides, Mike here is the worst Sonic player in history. Makes me feel better about my scores. Mike's protests rose above the video game noises. Willow smiled. They have you up early eating that oatmeal slop again? Mike discovered the culinary art of Pop Rock's oatmeal. Party in your mouth. Exactly. Willow knew Dylan's early mornings were filled with doctor's rounds, first round of PT for his prosthetic leg, and a host of blood tests to determine the process of his osteosarcoma. Judging from the same bald head Mike sported, she guessed he was also there for cancer treatment. Hey, you think we can get Mike in to see Holbrook too? He's a Knicks fan, but he said he'd put that aside for a chance to meet Chrissy LaRue. At the mention of Chase, Willow's stomach fluttered awake. Kind of like that early morning car sickness feeling after Denny's Grand Slam hotcakes, but warmer. She'd always kept it real with Dylan when the other adults in life disappointed him and failed to treat him like the adult he almost was. But each conversation he mentioned meeting Chase, and each conversation she found a way to steer him in an entirely different direction. Previous night's excursion aside, Dylan deserved a real hero, not an as-played-on-the-court hero. Best aunt ever, Dylan said to Mike. Courtside seats, the works. I just need a green light from your docs to travel. A green light, she worried, may never come. Hey, Dad's here. Want to say hi so I can put Mike away, once and for all? Willow's chest tightened. That her brother Thomas was at the hospital pre-dawn wasn't a good sign. She kept her mood light. Sure. Love you, Dill. Love you too, Will. Say hi to Holbrook for me. Oh, here's Dad. Thomas commandeered the phone. The background streaked by, from the dimness of Dylan's room to a blinding clinical light. Thomas clearly relocating to the privacy of the hallway. He wore his clean airline mechanic uniform and a somber expression. What's wrong, Thomas? The levels have taken a turn. Well, the pump isn't doing what they hoped. The sub-freezing morning breached her sheepskin-lined parka. She curled her knees to her chin and tried not to think of a world without Dylan's light. Does he know? Not yet. It's been one setback after another lately. He could really use something positive right now. Willow knew what Dylan wanted that something to be. Did you talk to his doctor about travel? He says there's restrictions on it. If it was some kind of make-a-wish, they'd have the funds for a nursing staff to travel with us to Pittsburgh, but we can't afford that. At the mention of Make-A-Wish, tears sprouted. Dylan had been granted a wish. He had given it to an army kid so she could see her father one last time at a meetup in Germany. Another wish was in the works, but these things took time, and time was something none of them were sure Dylan had much of. Willow thought about Chase's offer. Hold up your end. It's all yours. She swiped at the snot freezing in her nose. I'll see what I can do, Thomas. Will? Yeah? Hurry, okay? She nodded, unable to speak, blew him a kiss, and ended the call. For another 20 minutes, she listened to the noises of the awakening city and watched the night lift its hold over the skies. A plucky, but faint Hank Williams Jr. song two-stepped out through the crack in the sliding glass door. Dylan was such an amazing kid, so generous of spirit, so optimistic about the world, despite being dealt the shitty hand of cancer. If rumors about Chase were true, he only moved to the Alloys for the money. He was a man who looked out only for number one. He could crush everything that made Dylan Dylan. And Willow refused to allow that on her watch. But on the off chance she learned the rumors weren't true, that knowledge would surpass any amount of money. Even 10 grand. Willow went inside to pack. Chapter 5. Bzzz, bzz, bzz. Coming, Jesus! Chase snapped as he stumbled out into his foyer, a sock dangling from his toes and tripping up his progress toward the relentless visitor. His pink boxers, imprinted with iced and sprinkled donuts, offered little protection against the morning chill. Reaching the door and pummeling whoever was assaulting his door chime had taken higher priority than finding his clothes. He glanced through the peephole and saw the inside of a mouth. Only one person he knew could be that on at 7 in the morning. Willow. Her name slipped out like a muttered curse on his pasty tongue. He hunched in the chill, his hands cupping his junk, as if she had the superpower of X-ray vision.
I'm sleeping.
With your lips to the door? Sounds comfortable.
I have a cold.
He gave a sniff just to sound convincing. I haven't been sick in 5 years. Killer immune system. He was running out of viable excuses. He went for the jugular. I'm naked. The shuffling on the other side of the door stopped. Dead silence. Chase glanced through the peephole. Willow stood blindfolded, her neck scarf pulled up over her eyes. It was the first time in recent memory a woman didn't jump at the chance to see him in his altogether. He found it refreshing. He tapped the security code on the panel, surprising because he barely remembered his own name this early, and opened the door. She stood in a nest of suitcases and baskets and random crap that should have been boxed. Enough stuff to camp for weeks, months.
You know I'm going to break the record soon, right?
I need all this to function.
As a hoarder.
He picked up a ceramic ethnic mask that was, quite possibly, the most disturbing thing he'd ever seen. As a woman of the world. She moved forward, hands extended, blindfold slipping. First, she ran into the door jamb and drew back as if she had touched a live wire. Then the wall of his chest, which she most certainly took her time inspecting. Chase rolled his eyes over the theatrics and yanked down the holy scarf. Just as he suspected, the scarf was thin as mosquito netting. He shoved the mask into her hands and walked back into his penthouse.
Not this world.
Ketz here is a Central American god of wind, or corn or something. Anyway, legend says he was tricked into drunkenness and sex with a celibate priestess. Chase aimed for the refrigerator to put distance between his tired brain and the absurdity of letting this girl into his life. But she was hot on his tail, dragging her stuff along with the rest of the story. When he found out the priestess was his sister, he burned himself to death, and his still-beating heart became the morning star.
Thank you for inhabiting my nightmares for the next decade.
He poured a glass of orange juice and offered it to her. No thanks. I thought you could use some inspiration to stay celibate.
Lest I sleep with my sister and commit suicide by fire.
Okay, you know what? The lady at the bazaar hadn't had a sale all morning.
Do you have an off switch?
No. Chase took a swig of semi-sour juice, thinking nothing would unscramble his mind but coffee, when he realized she was inspecting his underwear. He stepped closer to the counter for cover. Nice underoos. Don't see many men who can successfully pull off a Danish pattern near their nether rod. She made a mention with her hands, a cross between a flourish and an air trombone, and capped it off with a 2-note whistle. Might want to steer clear of the windows in those. Last I saw, the traffic copter had shots of women on the roof next door holding binoculars.
What?
Chase gripped the edge of the granite countertop. There's also a swarm of scantily clad women in the lobby, overwhelming Faustino. Don't you watch the news? Chase was so lost he needed a miner's helmet and written directions. What did his doorman have to do with anything? Willow grabbed the nearby television remote and switched on Good Morning Pittsburgh. Next to a cartoon sun, the caption, Chase Holbrook's Shot at Love, lit the bottom third of the screen. She dialed up the volume. The day's hard-hitting stories had already been exhausted. By the program's second hour, the network rolled out a panel of local socialites to give their take on all things irrelevant. Winter color combinations, red carpet fashion critiques, Hollywood spats, and root jobs, whatever the hell those were. Women all over the city are waking up to the news that Alloy's player and one of the most eligible bachelors in Pittsburgh, Chase Holbrook, has been overheard saying that he just can't meet the right girl, but that he's ready to settle down with that special someone, said the Barbie-esque anchor. Chase remembered her giving him a full-court press at a kids' charity event last year.
I never said that.
Holbrook is quoted as saying that he doesn't have a type, And so long as the woman has a kind heart, he's open to dating women of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds. The burgeoning headache he had labeled Willow a few minutes earlier swelled to a migraine named Tarek. This stunt had Tarek all over it. As you can imagine, continued the anchor, single women from all over the city are rising to the challenge, literally. The screen filled with the shaky, live image of a group of women on a terrace, holding up signs with various enticements. Call me. Biggest fan. I love your donuts. Oh, shit. Chase ducked behind a kitchen wall. At least you'll be smothered by women with kind hearts, offered Willow. Close the blinds. His voice was more hunted rabbit than suave pro-athlete. I didn't hear the magic word, Magnum. Chase picked up Ketz. Now, or your Mexican corn god bites it. Good enough. Willow went to the sliding patio doors. Instead of drawing the blinds, she waved at the terrace women. On television, he watched the hopeful group Jack in the Box with excitement. Hurry up! There aren't any cords. There's a panel on the wall by the fireplace. Fancy. He would have sworn she was taking her sweet-ass time. She pressed a button for the ceiling fan, the stereo, which thumped out a rousing dubstep before silencing, the spotlight over his Adolf Rupp trophy, again with the fan, then, finally, the blinds. Cloth shades closed in a barely audible hum, meeting at the center and plunging the 30th floor space into nighttime. Fancy, Willow repeated. She padded back to the kitchen, turned off the television, and opened the fridge. Got any mayo? The woman whiplashed him with her topic changes. It's 7:30 in the morning. It's not like I'm going to make a BLT. Although, whatever. Second shelf in the door. Willow seized the jar. Oh, good, it's mostly empty. She unscrewed the cap, dug her hand to the bottom to scoop out a handful, and smeared it on her hair. He pinched the back of his hand, desperate to wake up. No other explanation. She finished her mayo hair smear and washed and dried the jar at the sink. Chase could have collected an entire swarm of flies in his slack mouth. I'm afraid to ask. Got a black pen? Far drawer by the coffee maker. She uncapped the pen with her teeth and wrote L-U-S-T, lust, over the iconic yellow and blue label. What the hell is that? It's like a swear jar, only for each impure thought it's $1, the sum of which shall be given to the women's shelter on 5th Avenue at the end of my duties here. She placed the jar in a prominent place at the center of his kitchen table, adjusted it as if it were gem-encrusted and required a light beam of just the right angle to shine, and turned to pick up her suitcases. Room? Hallway by the fireplace, third door on the left. In passing, she scooped up Ketz and placed him shotgun in her armpit. Might want to take the service elevator on your way to practice. There's enough skin in the lobby to fill the jar. Twice. Chase buried his head in his hands and tried to massage away the tension building at his temples. He had just invited a circus into the most important stretch of games in his career. Home game versus Charlotte. Sluggish start. At the 60-second gap between first and second quarter, Chase made his way to the team huddle. He knew Coach wouldn't send him in yet. His heart rate had yet to ease from 7 straight minutes of humping up and down the wood. His attention drifted. At center court, Bolt had dragged a young boy with some crazy dance moves out onto the Alloys logo. They traded move for move until the skit whipped the arena into cheers each time the little boy took his turn. After the boy's wickedly adorable smooth criminal dance move, hat and all, Bolt paid homage to him with a grand display of on-the-knees bowing. Tarek shoved his shoulder. Chase's focus snapped back to the huddle and 10 sets of eyes on him, not the least of which was Coach Perkins, his stare expectant, as if he had just asked him a question whose answer would pivot the entire offensive push for the second quarter. Sorry, Coach. Holbrook's too busy checking out the mascot to tell us our mismatch. We turned over the ball 6 times in the last 3 minutes. You got to communicate and pay attention. Perkins fired those last words like an arrow between Chase's eyes. I can't do it all from here." He gave a surrender gesture with his clipboard and walked away. At the break in the huddle, a handful of rookies glanced at Chase as if he had just committed the crime of the century. Coach called a lineup change. 5 fresh guys took the court. Chase dropped into the padded courtside chair. His blood ran toxic. How in God's name had he allowed Willow to hijack his focus? Tarek dropped beside him.
Man, you're already hurting if you're looking at a blue muskrat like that.
Chase hadn't yet had a chance to confront Tarek for the morning prank. When they hadn't been part of team-orchestrated warm-ups, Chase had ticked the time alone on the practice court. And when the game's announcer commented on the uptick in female fans at the game and asked for a shout-out from the ladies only, deafening in pitch and intensity, Chase had avoided eye contact with Tarek. He had been waiting until after the game, but Tarek's smart-ass smile nearly put Chase over the edge. Tarek's mother would find the fake positive pregnancy test Chase planted soon enough. Chapter 6. Chase's Hummer carved fresh ruts into the snow outside the arena. He had wasted a good half hour searching for Willow. Not because he particularly wanted to find her, but because it was as important as ever to win the bet against Tarek after his morning stunt. Part of Chase felt a slight tug toward the prospect of delivering leftover vendor food to the south side. Most of him just wanted his terrace hot tub and his favorite barbecue takeout. Willow, however, was not on the court or in the laundry room. No one had seen her, and she wasn't answering her cell. He decided she had taken advantage of the extra key he had left on the island. As off-kilter as she was, he trusted her. She was a steward of so many, putting others first at every turn. He just hoped she extended that same courtesy with his possessions. Flurries blew in circular eddies against his windshield. His wipers swiped away the accumulation, lighter now than the measurable amount squeaking beneath his tires. He drove past the robotic arm of the secured lot and glanced out at the sea of white. And the lone hump of car dusted in snow, with its hood raised. Chase squinted through the flakes. From the angle of the car, he could tell someone was buried beneath the hood. He slowed to a crawl while he contemplated his next move. Best case, he helps someone out. Worst case, he gets robbed at gunpoint. Even worse case, it was Willow. Everything with her was 10 times more involved than he bargained for. The woman didn't know the definition of simple. But stranger, criminal, or Willow, he knew he couldn't enjoy his brisket with special sauce until he offered help. He navigated his SUV closer. A parking lot lamp cast an eerie orange glow on the distressed vehicle and something blue. Closer, he saw the furry rump of a costume wiggle under the hood. Chase braked and shifted into park. He tipped his head back against the headrest and sighed. Willow wouldn't do a simple lift back to his place and call for roadside. His stomach growled, one final plead before it kissed a warm, spicy post-game dinner goodbye. The Hummer's high headlights illuminated the area beneath the Vegas hood. Neck up, and one costume-free naked arm, she was Willow in pigtails. Neck down, she was a blue muskrat turned abominable snow monster. Her free right hand worked something beneath the hood. He popped out of his toasty vehicle. Before he had a chance to ask her the problem, she straightened and fired off a question only Willow could have at that moment. "Got any pantyhose?" Chase patted his ass and thighs and reloaded his voice with heavy sarcasm. "Damn, I left my control-top fishnets in the locker room." "Cute." She flashed him a patronizing smile. "None of your supermodel dates left any in the back of that overpriced tank?" "You're hardly in a position to be casting stones at my ride." He ducked his head under the hood, mostly to block the icy north wind. He knew shit about broken-down cars, less than shit. "What's the problem?" "Broken alternator belt. If I had pantyhose, I could wrap it around the pulleys and tie it off." "How do you know so much about cars?" "I dated a grease monkey once." "How do you know so much about pantyhose?" "I dated a Lakers girl once." She rolled her eyes, this time accompanied by a half grin. His gaze trailed to her bare arm, so strangely out of place in this setting, in this cold, so completely fit. The slight contours cast shadows.
Come on, I'll give you a ride home.
I'm not going back to your place. The news did not hit him as he'd expected. He'd been waiting to hear her say those words since his absurd bet began. Now that she had uttered them, his lungs took in less frigid air and his body tinged with an odd vacancy.
You're not?
Crap. His question came out anything but unaffected. Nope.
Let me guess. Another of your Girl Scout missions?
Girl Scouts kicked me out. I was too
wild,
unconventional. I gave away all my cookies. His laugh came out in a cloudburst.
Doesn't surprise me.
You up for it?
Actually, I'm starving.
I can get you mashed potatoes, that's all I can promise. And not even very good ones.
Tempting.
I can't disappoint, Chase. People are depending on me. Her tone had sobered, left him behind again. She attacked this philanthropy thing like he attacked baseball. One look past her flake-covered lashes to the hope beyond, and he couldn't say no.
Mashed potatoes it is.
Willow squealed and bounced and filled his arms with a 50-pound damp muskrat pelt, and one semi-warm arm slinked around his bare neck before she caught herself. The unexpected touch skipped heat down his spine and awakened his frozen sub-waist parts, groin to toes. He dismissed the sensation away as the rush that came from helping someone else. Deep down, he knew that rush wouldn't have come from helping just anyone. Helping someone who did nothing but help others carries a special weight. They secured the Vega and climbed into his SUV. The smell of sweat, damp balls eclipsed the new leather of his current model year Hummer. Bolt's head filled his back seat, glaring at him in the rearview mirror with psycho eyes. Somehow he didn't care. Clearly, the mascot was part of this mission.
Where to?
Pearson Children's Hospital. Chance glanced at his dash readout. 11:58.
This time of night?
Always. At the emergency room doors to the hospital, the only entrance open this late, Willow placed Bolt's head on her shoulders and turned to Chase. She didn't know why she cared what he thought, but she asked anyway. How do I look?
Hideous.
She marched through the emergency wing, waving at staff members on her way to the elevators. Willow took the vow of mascot silence very seriously. Well, mostly. What do you have against Bolt?
Nothing personal, really. I don't like mascots.
They reached the deserted lobby, and she punched the up arrow. That's unsportsmanlike, un-fandom, un-American, she said.
Too much like clowns. I don't like them either.
Bolt's head sweltered from her labored exhales. Sweat squeezed from her pores. That's just wrong. Clowns get a bad rap. Their sole purpose is bringing joy. The world could use a little more of that.
I don't disagree. I just don't need mascots and clowns bringing joy into my world.
Chase was so close-minded, so elite, he couldn't even access that part of his soul that housed innocent fun. When he wasn't chasing the net in search of glory, his world was plastered all over the nightly entertainment shows with photos of LA beach parties and French Riviera yachts. Every time his diamond-encrusted fortress crumbled a bit, she was reminded why he was the worst role model for Dylan. Right. You have Hollywood actresses for that.
You say that like they're all snakes. They're good people, most of them. You don't have the market cornered on kindness, you know.
Though his words were muffled through the mutant-sized mask on her head, his tone contained enough armor to forge the Rutgers Scarlet Knight's costume. Since she couldn't fire back what she really wanted to say, how absurd the notion that she somehow did any of this to gratify some self-stroking agenda, she reared back. Bolt's paw fanned to his muskrat nose and wiggled her hairy digits.
Nice. Very mature.
They entered an open elevator and rode up to the third floor in silence. Willow planned to seek out Loretta first. She was the RN on night duty this week who had called Willow to let her know Javier had asked about Bolt. He was a 10-year-old who wanted to be the first Latino-American president. Javier could name all 43 U.S. presidents and their vice presidents sworn into office.
Grover Cleveland being the notable exception that had messed with the consecutive numbers, and one little-known fact about each one. Her personal favorite was Herbert Hoover, who donated his entire executive office salary to charity. Javier also had end-stage leukemia. Loretta lit up when she saw Bolt coming. Or maybe it was Chase standing beside her. Willow had never heard the woman so tongue-tied in her greeting. Willow pointed at Javier's room.
Up watching a rerun of the game, as usual.
More hospital staff gathered. For midnight, the floor sure was hopping. Then Willow noticed they were all women. She grabbed Chase's hand and dragged him into a snack room for families and visitors. The door suctioned closed behind them. She lifted off Bolt's head.
What?
You never asked me why I visit here at night.
Why do you visit here at night?
Because at this time of day, it's all about the kids. There aren't parents around wanting me to pose for photos with healthy siblings or hospital PR execs pulling me away from the patients. It's just a few staff members and the kids here who need the kind of happiness Bolt brings.
So,
you being here in all your blazing, hot Gordon Ramsay glory has unearthed every female staff member in this wing of the hospital. Chase laughed, a show of impeccable teeth and lips that would have caused mass cardiac arrest had they been in the hallway.
Gordon Ramsay does it for you, huh?
He's passionate and... She squeezed her eyes closed, her frustration bubbling to the surface. Totally irrelevant to my point.
What do you want me to do, hide?
Better. You'll be Bolt tonight.
No.
His no was so swift, she knew he hadn't considered the beauty of being inside a costume, sweaty ball smell or not. Wearing a costume means you don't have to pretend to be anyone else. No expectations of how Chase Holbrook, power forward for the Pittsburgh Alloys, would behave.
I'm 6'8", Willow.
There's plenty of room in here. Bolt just won't be so saggy.
You're forgetting my strong dislike of mascots.
You shouldn't knock something until you've tried it. Afterward, if you still dislike mascots, I will respect your opinion on the matter, because it comes from a place of authority.
I don't know.
He did that thing he often did, where he scrubbed his face with his palm, eyes pleading toward the ceiling. There's a boy out there in room 3042 who wants a blue muskrat all to himself. Don't make him share Bolt with 20 horny nurses.
God's truth, Chase blushed. Magnum Underwear Man blushed. It was glorious. One kid. If I hate it, we swap back.
Willow crossed her fuzzy heart with Bolt's paw. All right. She rocked out a jazzy dance move and wiggled out of the costume, firefighter style. All Chase had to do was step inside. Except Chase didn't move. She followed his stare, thinking she had been outed with massive sweat stains or something. But all she saw was her usual underbolt clothes, a sports bra and boy shorts. What? If he had blushed before, he was certifiably apple-colored now, hairline to neck. She realized what had him so freaked and turned so her back was to him. I won't look.
I'm not stripping.
You'll bake.
It's snowing outside.
And it's Phoenix in July inside Bolt. Besides, I need something to cover. He released a dramatic sigh like a teenaged girl deprived of her cell phone and seeing her crush, all on the same day. She really thought she had the whole Chase Holbrook nearly naked thing down, but the sound of his warm-up pants unfastening, snap, 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 had his late-night commercial flashing through her brain. She couldn't become another one of those simpering females who basked in his nearness, even if he had Gordon Ramsay beat, by a mile, or kilometer, depending on the continent. She was the one keeping him on the straight and narrow. Tarek trusted her character. His jacket and pants draped her shoulder. With them came his freshly showered scent, clean and sophisticated, and far richer than the Irish Spring that always occupied Estelle's shower, because she had once fallen in love with a married Irishman. Willow focused on the snack-sized chocolate cookies in the vending machine, because it kept her from worrying about her own stench after occupying the costume all evening. And it kept her mind off of a treat of a very different variety. And because, well, chocolate. The unmistakable zip of the closure at Bolt's side seam was her cue to turn. She took in the muskrat body and the GQ head. And laughed. Classic, like one of those flip games for kids. "I'm done." He reached near his neck to unzip. "Don't. I'm sorry." She brought her hand down over his. Her touch lingered far longer than she intended, which made everything in that room as awkward as if she'd had sweat stains from the get-go. He broke the tension first. "I was wrong." "About what?" "It isn't sweaty balls. It's Nunzio's feet." Willow giggled. "Lean forward." Chase complied. She dropped Bolt's head over Chase's with an unceremonious plop. "You look amazing. Get ready to make someone's day." "I can't see in this thing." His voice was muffled, but amused. "Bolt doesn't talk." She slipped on his jacket, still warm from his body, then gathered his paw and led him out into the hallway. Women in scrubs gave them strange looks. Then they went about their business. "What do I do?" he whispered. "Just be you." Chapter 7. Willow and Chase, dressed as Blue Muskrat, entered Javier's room. The little boy's eyes widened when he looked past her at his other, more exotic guest. "Bolt!" Had Javier not been tethered by IVs and medicine drips, he would have ambushed the mascot. Bolt drew close to the bed and gave an awkward wave. So it wasn't Broadway, but it did take some practice to get into character. Javier waved back, then hugged Willow. He wore a blue alloys jersey with Tarek's number on it and pajama bottoms patterned with basketballs. "Hi, Will." "Hey, champ, looking good. You're wearing my favorite player's jersey." Bolt went all paws on hips. She imagined Chase's expression in contrast to Bolt's open mouth, "oh" face. "Dad says they were sold out of Holbrook ones. He has one on back order." At this newsy tidbit, Bolt did a triumphant victory squirm complete with "We are the champion" fist pumps. This sent Javier into a fit of giggles, which, in turn, egged Bolt on to more moves. Willow laughed. She swiped Javier's phone off the nightstand and captured a few choice moves so he could show the other kids in the cancer wing. Never in a million years would she have expected Chase Holbrook to hit the Quan in a blue muskrat costume. She picked up Javier's bedside phone and dialed the hospital kitchen. "Food services, Alex speaking." "Hey, Alex, it's Willow." "Finally decided to grace us with your presence, eh?" he teased. "You know how busy this season gets," said Willow. "How's that cute little Malamute puppy of yours?" "Chewing on everything." "Text me pictures. I'm sure he's so much bigger now than when I last saw him." Javier snagged her attention with a perfectly executed dab. Bolt dabbed, too. "Thanks for the vet recommendation. She's great. What can I send up tonight?" "I promised mashed potatoes, a lot of them. And lime jello?" "Got you covered, love." "You're the best, Alex." By the time she hung up with Alex, Javier had conned Bolt into sitting beside him in bed. The contrast in size was staggering. Javier looked a little like a flesh wound on the elbow of a blue muskrat. They watched the rerun of Chase junking a star Charlotte player and sailing past for an easy layup. To say Javier and Bolt celebrated was an understatement. The final few minutes of the game played out. Javier reached for the remote and turned off the television. When Bolt tried to give him more room to settle back into bed, the boy grabbed Bolt's furry elbow and held him in place. Bolt stretched out again beside him. Javier sighed. Contentment, fatigue from battling an illness most of his life, something. His beautiful nut-brown skin had a grayish cast. Willow planted herself at the foot of his hospital bed, next to Legs for Days Bolt, and dug deep for positivity to surpass her melancholy. "Miss Loretta said you were riding a scooter up and down the hallway yesterday." "Yep." "Did you show him how it's done?" Javier did a neck jive and swiped a suave hand past the place he once had an enviable mane of thick dark hair. Willow laughed. The kid had serious charm. Total ladies' man, if he ever got the chance to become a man at all. "How's your mom?" "Sad most days." "She's afraid one of those cute blondes down the hall will become your girlfriend, steal you away from her." A fast grin played at Javier's mouth, but subsided almost as quickly. "I think she knows." "Knows what?" "That I have to go soon." Willow's throat thickened. She didn't know exactly what he meant. Certainly didn't want to make a joke of it. "Go where, Javier?" "Heaven." Willow's chest swelled to bursting, almost painful. Instincts had her glancing at Chase, but all she saw was Bolt's silly expression. "How do you know?" "My grandpa comes most nights after Mom leaves. Sometimes he'll sit in that chair over there until I fall asleep, so I'm not scared. We talk." "What do you talk about?" "He tells me what heaven's like. He says it's different for everyone, but that joined souls stay together, like a love gravity." "Sounds amazing." Tears backed up. Willow fought hard to subvert them from her eyes, but they crackled out through her voice. "I think so too. I hope they have basketball there." Bolt sat up slowly. He turned to face her, his hands resting at the base of the costume head. Chase was asking permission. Willow nodded. Chase removed Bolt's head. "I hope they have basketball too." Javier's eyes flashed cartoon-wide. His jaw dropped. Three Stooges-like hand gestures followed. He glanced from Willow to Chase, mouth gaped. "I'm glad I said your jersey was my first pick," said Javier. Chase laughed. Somber moment aside, they worked at devising a bro handshake, paw to small hand. When that didn't work, Chase unzipped Bolt's costume and freed his right hand. The handshake grew to epic proportions, something she could never remember. But Chase learned it with the finesse of someone who had memorized an entire NBA playbook. A knock sounded at the door. Alex came in with a loaded tray, far more than mashed potatoes and Jell-O. He, too, failed to hide his surprise at seeing Chase there, but gave his utmost attention to Javier. "Someone told me you might want a little midnight snack." He set the tray on the patient table and pressed the bed panel to elevate the mattress behind Javier's head. 3 green Jell-Os?" "All for you, my man." "Thanks." Chase introduced himself and shook Alex's hand. After a brief trifecta of male commentary on the Charlotte game, Alex said his goodbyes. "I can't eat all this. Want some?" Javier asked Chase. "I thought you'd never ask." Together they mouthed through chili cheese fries, steamed green beans, mashed potatoes, 2 cartons of chocolate milk, and the fattest slice of lemon meringue pie Willow had ever seen. Turns out, Javier wasn't only an expert on presidents. He was a bit of a basketball historian, which led to endless and spirited debates about the true greats of the game. They took selfies, Chase still half in Bolt's costume. For once, the mascot code didn't matter. Not much did, except the possibility that Willow might have been wrong, very wrong, about Chase Holbrook. It wasn't a big deal that Chase couldn't sleep. Today was a day off before a 2-game road trip out to L.A. He could make up for being awake at 4 a.m, watching muted highlights from around the NBA, by sleeping all day if he wanted. It wasn't even a big deal that he had veered off his strict diet, designed for peak season performance, and overindulged in the best-tasting, greasiest chili fries in recent memory. What was a big deal was his source of sleeplessness. Willow. In the 2 years since he had been in Pittsburgh, he never once bothered to look past her pigtails and sassy mouth and irritating positivity. Knowing what he knew of her now, everything fit. The grab ass on the court. The need to have someone high energy like Willow fill a costume that represented the team and the game. Basketball made people like Chase and Javier happy, but a ton of people who came to games for other reasons craved that happiness too. After filling her shoes, literally, in both costume and deed, he had a new appreciation for how much she gave. He hadn't seen that level of selflessness since Saul and Irma. But where did it end? He knew next to nothing about the woman sharing his place, except who she was in the eyes of others. What did she want? No one aspires to be a team mascot. Her words from the hospital snack room returned to him. Wearing a costume means you don't have to pretend to be anyone else. Did that mean that when she wasn't Bolt, she was pretending? From the kitchen, the hush of slippers on tile brought him clear of his thoughts. He peered over the leather back of his sofa and caught a glimpse of her sneaking a glass from his cabinet and filling it at the sink. He had an entire shelf in the fridge of imported spring water from the French Alps, and she went for tap water. That wasn't all he noticed. Willow wore a jersey Javier gave her earlier that night. Kid said he had a better one on the way, which damn near made Chase prouder than the day he'd learned about his free agency trade to Pittsburgh. She wore little else. The hem and square NBA logo skimmed just shy of the swell of her ass, and the ample armholes promised to show from the side should he decide to reach for anything above her shoulders. That he wanted to march in the kitchen and give her a reason to stretch for something on a high shelf left him speechless, which, in turn, made him feel like a creep, watching her without saying anything. She chugged the water in an unabashed display of rampant thirst, set the glass on the counter, and said, "Now why can't your head be on a swivel like that on defense?" "Shit, busted." "Why do you give me such a hard time? More than any other player?" An honest question. He wanted to know if Willow was one of the naysayers, the ones who believed the Alloys would have been stronger had they gone a different direction, the ones who believed he tied up funds for younger, healthier players straight out of the draft, the ones who counted the days until the Alloys were free to negotiate him gone. He knew she would shoot him straight. No pandering to what he wanted to hear, like so many others. Shh. Her slippers drew near until she stood before him. God help him, he couldn't keep his eyes off her bare legs, unless he counted the snag when his gaze slid to her ankles, and he marveled at the colossal unicorns that had swallowed her feet. He glanced at the Bulls' highlights he had seen twice already as a safe haven, but the temptation to return his stare to her body, to her eyes, proved too strong. "Well, shirtless boy wonder, a long time ago I learned that every time I gave you a hard time on the court, you got fired up enough to come back and do something remarkable. I started to believe that I might have a small part in that." He wanted to tell her she didn't need him to be remarkable, that she already had remarkable covered simply by being her. But he didn't want this turmoil on his race to the record books, this level of affinity and protectiveness she had barely scratched the surface of in his awareness, this inability to remember her as the annoying mascot girl. And he didn't want the nearly overwhelming desire to show her the part of himself he revealed to a few. For him, all emotion was connected to the game. No attachments, no expectations. Southside had taught him that. She yawned and padded toward her hallway on a barely uttered night. At the last minute, she veered to her purse by the door, dug through her wallet, and dropped a $5 bill in the lust jar. Chase fought a big fucking grin and failed. Symphony, an exclusive restaurant and pub with a view of the Los Angeles skyline, had a 4-month waiting list. Unless your name was Chase Holbrook or Tarek Johns. Tarek had arranged a double date during the team's evening gap in the city, Tarek with his sister, who was a talent scout for an up-and-coming West Coast agency, and Chase with one of her rising stars, a bit-part actress named Fallon, whose greatest roles to date included a toothpaste commercial and a distressed assault victim on a crime drama. The ambiance was minimalistic and grayscale, in keeping with the theme of music for the taste buds. What Chase found most minimalistic, however, was his date. She had shiny, chocolate-brown hair, perfectly symmetrical features, a smile too perfect to be real, airbrushed makeup, total sabotage on Tarek's part. Gorgeous, but wasteful. She took 3 bites of her ethereal salmon, whatever the hell that was, and shooed it back on the waiter. Her next 3 courses were no exception. Chase mentally accumulated the discarded food and thought of Grady and Sam and Millicent. "If you don't like the food, we can go somewhere else," he said to her. "It isn't that. I have a callback for a beach series next week. They want me to run lines in a bikini. He looked at Tarek, whose raised brows said a million things his mouth didn't. Chase gave a faint shake of his head and dug into his filet mignon. At Tarek's sister's request, they had agreed to conversation that did not include basketball. This left out talk about Chase's highest-scoring game yet, 44 points. He attributed his recent hot streak to the Celi-bet, not because he was completely sold on the premise, but because Willow always had somewhere to be, someone to help. During those times, he put in hours alone on the practice court, gave him time to think, mostly about her. Chase glanced over at the gorgeous woman beside him. He tried to get lost in Fallon's full, ruby lips as she ate, but the collagen she had discussed with Tarek's sister earlier tainted his appreciation. He tried to find a glimmer in her caramel-colored eyes as she spoke about her days as a pageant contestant, but he detected no passion behind her words. He tried to imagine her flawless body grinding against him in some secluded place with an infinity pool and moonlight, but she became Willow. Jesus Christ. He excused himself from the table and went out on the empty patio for fresh air. It wasn't long before he heard Tarek's smug voice behind him. "She's getting to you, isn't she?" "You're an asshole, Johns." His voice had all the strength of a wet paper towel. Accompanied with a half smile, insults were just something they did. "I'm not losing this bet." "Who said this had anything to do with the bet?" Spoken like a choir boy hiding a skin mag behind his back. "Come on, look at her. Her toes have been humping my shin all night." Tarek clapped his hands. "Ha, priceless." "I want to go back to the hotel." "Now you're talking." "Alone." "Man, are you feverish?" He reached for Chase's forehead. Chase smacked it away. "You know how many men on this earth have a chance with Fallon Gray? Hell, I don't even have a chance with Fallon Gray, and I'm the best-looking cat on the team." "I'm perfectly capable of making conversation about things other than basketball. But she hasn't stopped talking all night. About stupid shit, like butt glue so she doesn't get a wedge during her audition. Is that supposed to turn me on?" "For your wallet's sake, let's hope not." Chase stared at the intersection of a nearby palm tree and the warm LA skyline at dusk. So unlike Pittsburgh. What if the sports broadcasters were right? What if he had stayed in Sacramento? In this state, the fans loved him unconditionally. At least they did before he bailed, when he was fresh out of the draft, loyalty intact. Was Willow right? Had his joy come from chasing money and notoriety? Did that make him as shallow as Fallon Gray? Tarek sidled up to the railing beside him. The jokester in him all but leached out. "We're celebrating, man. You played like Jordan out there today. No one could touch you. You're about to beat my ass on the record books. Food's good, place is chill. So we go back and start up a conversation about something else, anything else. You name it. Just don't tap out on me or I'm left with my sister all night." Chase thought about his medium-rare steak. Goddamn perfection that shouldn't go to waste. Tarek was right. They were celebrating. Chase had worked his ass off to get to this level. Sleeping, breathing, and eating the game until it consumed him. He'd be damned if he let a space-ass woman 3,000 miles away get in his head and ruin his night. Chapter 8. Chase returned to the table at Symphony. A slight shift in his frame of mind and spirits improved. They cleared their plates. Wine flowed for the ladies. Fallon nudged his cock under the tablecloth, the promise of so much more in her pointed stare. He could call a cab and have her 6 ways until morning, infinity pool and moonlight and whatever else he could think of to bankroll. The 4 companions spilled out onto the downtown street below. Chase glanced across the street. A man in filthy clothes and bare feet sat against the bank tower holding a cardboard sign. The sight immobilized him. His culinary feast turned to an anchor in his gut. Tarek called out to him, the back of a cab propped open, ladies already inside. "Come on, man!" Chase's stare again drifted across the street. A couple walking by gave the man a wide berth. "Hold up, I'll just be a minute." Chase jogged across 6 lanes, mostly empty. Tarek's words filled the space behind him. A best friend blend of curses, questions, and white guy slams. He stood apart from the seated man, easily in his 60s by a good 10 feet. For the first time, hairs rose on his neck. What if this guy pulled a knife on him? Then he read the sign. Too damned ugly to prostitute. Hungry and tired. Chase suppressed a smile. This guy was all right. Honest. Like someone else Chase knew. He tried to think what Willow would say. With her, it was never about someone's misfortune. Always, she made it about their shared humanity. And without fail, she made sure someone on this earth knew their name. I'm Chase. What do you chase? The man raised his head. Women, mostly. Balls, sometimes. Hopefully it's not women with balls. Seen a few of those in my day. Chase gave an appreciative laugh. Already the guy was more entertaining than Fallon. What's your name? They call me Crazy Jack. What did your mom call you? Worthless, mostly. But on Sundays, she called me Clarence. Chase drew close and held out his hand. Nice to meet you, Clarence. Mind if I sit? Clarence completed the handshake. Free country? Least that's what they told me when I enlisted. Chase settled beside him, his back to the building. This gave him a prime view of Tarek pacing and 2 bobbing heads inside the shadowy cab, craning, watching. Thank you for your service, Clarence. Clarence just rattled a wiry exhale through the maze of overgrowth in his nostrils, past his grizzled beard. I was hoping you could give me some advice. Since meeting Willow, honesty felt like a drug. A safe, league-sanctioned hit of something refreshing and real. Shoot. There's this woman. Always? A slight grin tugged at Chase's lips. She's impossible. In your face, opinionated. Not even particularly gorgeous, but kinda cute in a girl-next-door way. Adorable, really, when she isn't completely frustrating me. So, what's the problem? I have to be guarded. People tend to come into my life for the wrong reasons. And you think she's one of them? Everyone before her has put conditions on me. If you get All-State Chase, top-tier Chase, first-round Chase, then we'll talk, then we'll see. It's hard to believe any different. Sounds like a lonely life. His brain cataloged the women, the college friends, the parasites who wanted to share his limelight. Sometimes. Sure you're not using them, too? Chase glanced across the road at Tarek. His hands were open, spread wide, all, what the hell? Maybe life was one big game, everyone using everyone else in some way to get ahead. Hadn't he done the same to dig himself out of the slums? Hustling pickup games to eat. Pitting guys against each other to drive competition. Sports agents, business managers, even teammates. Tarek setting up a night with a beautiful woman to win the bet. Maybe people like Willow were a myth, and she would show her colors soon enough. Doesn't matter. I don't need her kind of distraction. I have something important to do. Something more important than the affections of a woman? Yes. Then I'd say you're the one with the problem, bub. She would like you, Clarence. Sounds like a keeper to me. A ripple of warmth stirred where his anxiety had been. He let loose a laugh and slipped off his dress shoes. They're not very practical. Hurt my feet, actually. I'm used to different footwear. Mind if I leave 'em? Clarence shrugged. Suit yourself. Thanks for the wisdom, Clarence. Chase reached for his hand again. This time, Clarence's grip had the strength of a solid connection. On his way to standing, Chase slipped 2 crisp bills out of the money clip in his pocket and buried them inside the right shoe. Sure thing, ball chaser. He couldn't be sure if Clarence recognized him. Something in the way the old man said it suggested he did. Chase dodged a bit of traffic on his way back to the cab. Tarek pointed at Chase's stockinged feet as they climbed into the van.
Those were Ferragamos.
Fallon looked at him with a warped expression. A little like she had put butt glue between her perfectly painted eyebrows. A little like he was a few buckets short of a win.
Insane, man, muttered Tarek.
Chase smiled. He had never felt saner. Hands down, Willow's Aunt Nani's New Orleans gumbo was the best on the planet. She had spent the morning shopping at the freshest markets, making seafood stock, shucking oysters and peeling shrimp, steaming crab claws and chopping veggies. The spicy scents filling Chase's never-been-touched, chef-inspired kitchen were to die for. Add the buttermilk cornbread she had baked that morning, and the spread was fit for a Cajun king. Or at least the entire lineup of Alloy's players. Early that morning, she had heard Chase come home after the team's red-eye flight back from the West Coast. Willow stayed in bed. Mostly, she kept herself from sleeping by wondering random things. Why was she planning a huge dinner when she should be looking for an apartment? Had Chase christened every bed in the penthouse? Did Gordon Ramsay drop F-bombs during sex like he did when he was cooking? When was Estelle's prescription ready for pickup? Was there a television hidden in her room like every other room in this penthouse? What if it was on the ceiling and had a camera and... crap! Her thoughts had diverged into sweaty, brazen Chase sex until she'd buried her head under a pillow as punishment. Willow caught a shower before the team showed up. She chose a shirt Nani had sent her with a waving cartoon crayfish that read, "Laws, yes, I'm Cray," and wrapped a red apron around the waist of her yoga pants, sous chef style. By 6, the place was hopping with towering men whose visual feast rivaled her edible one.
So this is where the Gordon Ramsay preoccupation comes from. You cook.
Chase entered the kitchen, snagged a pinch of cornbread from the platter, and popped it into his mouth. Scratch that. Something else rivaled the cayenne hot visual feast dotting the penthouse. Chase Holbrook's orgasmic eye roll at her culinary skills.
That's really good,
he said around the crumbly bite.
If your gumbo is anything like your bread, you should open a place.
She stared into the biggest gumbo pot and bit her lip. Should she tell him? To her parents, her idea had been one crumb on a rabbit trail through indecisive forest. Just another of Willow's harebrained ideas to keep from focusing on nursing school or any one thing that might give her a stable life. It had been her dream, all hers, and that held power she didn't give away lightly. Actually, I've been thinking about it.
Yeah?
I want to open a pay-it-forward restaurant.
What's that?
Okay, picture this. She set her wooden spoon across the pot's lip and hopped up on the counter, jazzed that he asked. It opens somewhere between the trendy part of downtown and the neighborhood we drove through. There are no menu prices, and every person who orders receives a check for $0. They can pay for their meal by volunteering, working the organic garden on the roof, serving others, cooking, dishwashing, or they can pay for the next person, or 2 or 20 who come through the door. The walls are filled with messages of encouragement, left behind by those who've come before. I want to call it the Cordial Cafe, or something like that. She braced herself for comments she had heard before. From her father, "Is that a sustainable business?" From her mother, "Oh, honey, it sounds nice, but what about being a nurse?" From her brothers, "Let us know when you wake up in the real world." From Estelle, "What if one of the volunteers blows his nose in the food? Health department fiasco." Willow braced herself for Chase to fall into the same comfortable, teasing territory they had established regarding the Vega, but he flashed his devastatingly handsome but contradictory 1-2 combo of a headshake and a smile. "What?" she asked.
Nothing. No, it's great.
You're shaking your head.
I've just never met anyone so passionate about helping others before.
He picked up the wooden spoon and stirred the gumbo in a neighboring pot, right where she'd left off. Maybe he needed a diversion. Maybe he just liked having a hand in things. The domesticity of the small act was 1,000 times sexy. She glanced around at his well-appointed kitchen. a stark contrast from the olive green stoves and crackerbox workspaces in her life. "Too bad it'll never happen," she sighed. "Who says?" "Everyone. I can't even figure out my own life. How will I ever run a business?" "You know the food and the heart behind the idea. Get a partner who knows the restaurant industry." "You make it sound as easy as sticking to a Celi-bet." "Yep, definitely a diversion." He tended the pot as if he expected the seafood to jump out and waddle back to the ocean. In profile, she saw his mouth twitch and flirt with his barely there dimple. "I heard you showed masterful control in the face of adversity on your date," she teased. Tiny droplets along his hairline held her attention. Steam from the rolling boil. Or perspiration. No matter the cause, sweat was, quite possibly, his best color. "I held my own." "That's what Tarek said." She hopped off the counter and nudged him, shoulder to elbow. He had walked right into that innuendo, and she wouldn't let him squirm out of it for anything. "Hey, thanks for the tow and the fix." The Vega had mysteriously shown up, alternator belt replaced, while Chase had been in L.A. A Post-it note affixed to her dash read, "Better than fishnets, number 28. That Chase had signed his note with his uniform number was a testament to his intention. Their arrangement had always been, and always would be, a business transaction, nothing more. "No problem," he said, absently, distracted, as if the money to fix her car had been spare change found at the bottom of his washing machine. "What the hell is this?" Tarek interrupted. He rounded the kitchen column, already the loudest at the party, holding the lust jar in his hand. Half a dozen other teammates gathered around. Chase gestured for her to explain. "It's like a swear jar, for lusty thoughts." "Many of those floating around here?" "Gotta be $30 in there so far," said Nunzio. "Count that shit, man." Wilcox did the honors. 36 lusty thoughts. 36? Wait. She may not have been an MBA in restaurant management, but she was queen of budgeting and watching every dollar. 36 was $4 more than she had contributed. Willow glanced at Chase. Would the man never run out of pots to stir? Seriously. So what if there were $4 aimed at Fallon the Talon? That he had engaged in the game at all quickened her pulse. "There's a lot of damned lust around here," said Tarek, his suspicious gaze aimed directly at her. Her turn to squirm. Too bad the gumbo had been stirred to oblivion. "Well, his underwear ad is on the billboard visible from the terrace. I have a pulse, you know." Catcalls, hoots, assorted guy animal noises. Platter of cornbread in hand, she headed out to the dining room to add to the buffet. She really needed to stop being so honest. The last of the team left near midnight. After they put away enough food to fuel the next 3 games and lobbed endless compliments her way about the food in the way only guys can, body noises and groans, and enough curses to put Estelle to shame, they had put Willow in a recliner and formed an assembly line to clean up the kitchen. The spectacle was more entertaining than the impromptu sing-along Booth had started when the television accidentally landed on the karaoke channel. She giggled and sank into the supple leather and tried to take a mental snap of the moment. Before long, she would be living hand-to-mouth again, because there would always be someone who needed money more. When cleanup was finished, they had settled in for a competitive session of a pre-market NBA game on the video console. 4 brothers hadn't only prepared Willow for live hoops, but she had long ago mastered the art of digital sports games. She proved better at being Tarek than Tarek himself, to the endless delight of everyone assembled. She, along with Wilcox and Rogers, took the Bill Walton-era Trailblazers to the finals. On repeated protests for a rematch, they trickled home a few at a time until Chase said the last of his goodnights and closed the door. Willow curled up on the couch and yawned. The day had slipped away, stealthily and seductively comfortable. She reminded herself not to get used to it. Reality had a way of smacking her in the face when she took her eye off the ball. Or, in her case, balls, all moving in different directions. Chase settled beside her. After a day of raucous conversation and loud egos, the silence invited back an awkwardness that was only bearable in the ease of his body language. His knees were wide, relaxed, his movements were unhurried, comfortable. He picked up a controller.
One more I was holding back.
Really? And why is that?
Didn't want the guys to feel bad. There's a reason the company asked me to test. I slay.
Absolutely zero ego. Straight up, she would have staked Estelle's bingo money that he was flirting with her. By the time her mind had packaged that thought, she dismissed it. He was simply treating her as he had all afternoon, like one of the guys. The day Chase Holbrook thought of her as anything other than mascot girl, hell would be importing matches. You're on. You pick first.
I'll be the Kings.
He scrolled through the menu and selected their checkerboard alternate jerseys. Feeling nostalgic?
A bit.
Something in his voice gave her pause. So long as it's not regret. Just remember, you miss all the shots you don't take. She scrolled through the menus until she landed on her selection. Current Alloys season lineup, special edition Latino jerseys, before she realized he'd been watching her. What? She asked. I have a thing for rare jerseys.
No, it's not that. Someone used to tell me that when I started basketball.
Smart someone.
Yeah, he was.
His tone was sad, reflective.
He zipped through the menus until the starting buzzer sounded.
Willow won the tip-off. She pushed the button on her controller to call a timeout.
Seriously? Chase said.
She bit her bottom lip. With a few deft menu moves, she traded number 28, Chase Holbrook, for some no-name scrub on the Miami Heat. Her attempt to keep from dissolving into laughter proved futile when Chase reached for her side and tickled her into near incapacitation. The controller slipped from her hand. She squirmed and writhed for her freedom, gasping for air around her hiccup-like humor fit, nearly sliding off the worn leather fabric. He caught her before she reached the floor and scooped her back onto the sofa. Under him. Hands braced on either side of her head, knees astride her hips, breathing fast and hard. They froze. She watched his expression fall, by measures, as the realization of their compromising position settled in his eyes. He made no move to release, to backtrack, to do anything but study her face as if he was looking for answers, encouragement, disgust, something. Willow didn't know what to give him. She wasn't sure herself. Her body was as hot as a pot prepped for a crawfish boil, but her mind telegraphed a clear warning. Chase Holbrook, different woman every few days. Chase Holbrook, supposed to be celibate. Chase Holbrook will hurt you. Then he lowered his lips to hers, and reason ceased to matter. Chapter 9. Willow had imagined Chase's kiss before. Strong and steady, not given to showy moves or unnecessary risks. His play on the court, but better. He would taste exceptional, unattainable, like a forbidden fruit meant only for a select few. And he would show the same commitment to the moment as he did to the game. She had imagined his kiss before, but all those fantasies were pre-season. Chase's kiss was playoffs, final minute before the buzzer intense. She answered him with $36 and 2 years of pent-up longing. Arms looped around his neck, she parted her lips to welcome him inside her mouth. He might have seized the opportunity of her legs between his, her body completely at his mercy, but he didn't. The exquisite and thorough exploration of lips remained their only contact, as if he too was taking the time to convince himself this was real, this was happening, this could happen. As much as Willow wanted him to unpin her and make better use of his hands, as much as she wanted him to find other, more desperate areas for him to kiss, as much as she had played this fantasy in her girly moments of self-gratification, Willow wanted to keep her word more. Her spoken word to Tarek and Chase that she would be a steward of her role. Her unspoken word to Dylan that she would ensure Chase Holbrook had the composition of a man, not an ego, and that the bet money would be hers so that it could be Dylan's. Her internal word that she was nothing more than a geographically convenient diversion for someone like Chase. Around his very deft, very sensual tongue, she whispered his name. When he didn't respond with anything but a more thorough lip examination using delicious scrapes of his perfect teeth, she added, "There isn't enough space in the lust jar for this." Humor was her last defense. But with each successive plunge of his tongue, her defenses subsided. Dear God, she was in trouble. 44 points. His kiss subsided like a changing tide, barely perceptible but for the recovery of his breath against hers. He broke contact and searched her eyes. She knew he was in a vulnerable place, wanting to save face, making this about anything other than what it was, a gross error in judgment on both of their parts. Again, she reached for humor. Next game, you'll score 46 points if you let me romp your ass in the video game instead of on your couch. The bet. The bet? The Celi-bet, remember? Right. He rubbed his lips together, backed away, and settled in the crook of the cushion behind her legs. She untangled her legs from beneath his body and straightened her t-shirt where it had ridden up in a glee run for bra fastener highway. I don't make nearly enough as Bolt to cover the last 3 minutes. She was trying here, but he didn't smile. He had a glazed look of a motorist who had just veered wildly to avoid a collision. So the jokes were misfiring. She took a stab at honesty. I'm here for a reason, Chase. I have to respect that and your hospitality. You're you and I'm me. Your world isn't my world. And in a few games, you'll be the leading offensive scorer in the NBA, and I'll still be the mascot girl who smells like sweaty balls. This hinted at a laugh. I won't let this, as Gordon Ramsay-esque as it was, stand in your way. Closer to a laugh, smile, something. She leaned forward, gave him a fast mini raspberry on his cheek, and slipped away before she could change her mind. On her way down the hallway, she had an epiphany. Loose on her tongue, she called behind her. Must have been the oysters. Yeah, that was it. He sounded dubious. Henry Lawrence had the worst layup form in the history of the game. When he didn't look like he was fleeing a wildfire, the wrong knee would pop up or his body would topple wildly off balance. But damn if his shot percentage didn't rival Chase's today. Henry's game was on point. Or Chase's was way off. Way off. Holloway's gonna cut your ass if you play like this tomorrow, said Henry, winded. He had the lumbering stance of someone who passed most of his days in a fight cage or humping a boxing bag. But he was the one from Saul's brotherhood of 3 who remained closest to the streets, closest to keeping it real after their mentor had passed away. Why are you so distracted? Called out on his subpar play, Chase fired his jets, passed the ball to himself via a bank off the backboard, and attacked a rebound. Drain. End of discussion. As much as Chase liked the team concept, basketball was never more alive than when he laid it out with Henry. 2 opponents, 1 goal. On the same outside post in which he had cut his game teeth, Saul's gym was Chase's ultimate reset button. Most of the day, it had been about the kids, giving back, asking after them the way Saul would have wanted. Now, forget it. The neighborhood, the team, the city. Life simply dropped away. He wanted his game pure, untainted. Nothing, man. Let's play. Bullshit! Henry hijacked the ball, wasting time on behind-the-back dribbles, probably to catch his breath. Guy was 200% lean muscle, but his cardio was shit. It's this bachelor crap. Pretty boy's getting in his own way. Chase took the diss as an invitation to Pretty Boy all over his ass. He stole the ball and dunked it. Henry went on. Serious. I can't turn on one news broadcast without seeing your ugly mug. You got half the women in the city with damp panties. Bound to mess with your priorities. You've worked too hard to foul out now. It's not like that. I went Father Arnaud last week. Their code for no sex. Father Arnaud had been a French import of the Catholic Church in the heart of Pittsburgh when they were teenagers. While Saul had a drawer in his desk known to all the boys as the raincoat drawer, Arnaud tried in vain to convince them that their gifts were best kept behind closed zippers. When Chase passed Henry the ball, he sat on it. His exhale still emerged in fast vapor clouds. If Marcus were here, you'd tell him. Get off, I wouldn't. This had always been a sore spot for Henry. Marcus and Chase went pro, had more in common, saw each other more, had the funds to travel and live the same lifestyle. Henry had stayed close to Saul and Irma, to the gym that had brought them together, the martyr of the group. No education, just his fists and a mild level of success on the fight circuit. Each one had their righteousness about something, but Chase never once considered Henry anything but his equal. Now he had the chance to prove it. Chase lay on the concrete court, knees up, his hoodie bunched at his neck like a pillow. Typical Pittsburgh sky in the winter, muted blue, no clouds, cold as death.
It's a woman. Knew it. Which Hollywood girl this week? None of them. This girl's completely different. She's Irma, man. Ain't no one Irma. This girl, she's close. She's got nothing. As far as I can tell, she comes from nothing. Gotta watch out for those, man. See you and your 90 mil coming a mile away. Thing is, she doesn't care. We had an arrangement. 10 grand for a favor. I put the money in an envelope on the table. It's still there, next to the coupons she clipped out of the paper for diapers to take to the women's shelter. I wrote a note on the envelope last night. Why haven't you taken this? This morning, she had written back, favor isn't finished. Never once has she apologized for who she is. It's fucking intoxicating. Just don't let her intoxicate your ass out of the game. They talked about the next game against Miami, Marcus's shoulder injury, the city putting eminent domain pressure on the very block they occupied. The time was good. He rarely took it with Henry anymore, but Chase's blood had cooled and he needed to head home. A standing shadow eclipsed the dusky sky. Henry and Chase glanced back at the same time. Willow stood in medical scrubs and a sweater, her arms wrapped around her body in the chill. His gaze ascended to her lips. Lips he had claimed. Lips that were your favorite candy that would haunt your system all day if you consumed too much. Chase's heart staggered out of rhythm. "They told me I would find you here." He opened his mouth to respond, but Henry beat him to it. With more energy than Chase had squeezed out of him the whole game, Henry bounded to his feet and scooped Willow up into a full-body hug. "Hey, you! Been too long. Is it free clinic day?" "Third Thursday of every month." Had Chase not already been on the ground, his body would have plummeted on mental impact. That she was here, no doubt the reason she gave him her blessing to head to Saul's gym unmonitored. That she was comfortable with Henry in a way Chase had yet to feel her against him. That she continued to surprise him with infinite layers of knowing everyone and being everything to everyone left him without words. "Well, I'd like you to meet my good friend Chase." Chase felt Willow's smile all the way to his toes. Secret, conspiratorial. Somehow more than what she had just given freely to Henry. The gesture edged him back from the toxin that had settled in his chest, whatever the fuck it was. Irritation, protectiveness, jealousy. Shit. "We've met, silly," she said to Henry. Henry's face pinched. "Right, Bolt. Sorry. So how long are you here?" "Just finished up. Girls aren't here today, so I'm headed home." The word home, his home, dropped so effortlessly from her lips, did crazy things to his gut. Jesus, if this encounter was a 3-count tap-out, he'd already be on 2. He had yet to determine exactly when Willow had transitioned in his thoughts from pain in the ass to jump her ass, but he guessed it was right about the time she wore a skin-tight shirt with a crawfish on her right breast and wriggled up on his counter to let him inside her menagerie world for the umpteenth time. Father Arnaud was backfiring. And Willow occupied his mind because she occupied his place. Simple as that. If he wasn't careful, Lord, yeah, he'd be the cray one. Henry tried to bait her with a dinner offer, someplace that was, supposedly, her favorite fusion restaurant. "Thanks anyway. I have an important commitment." Her gaze trickled to Chase. "Next time." She hugged Henry, wrapped her sweater tighter around herself, and headed back inside the gymnasium. The 2 childhood friends looked after her until she disappeared. Henry chest-passed the ball, hard. Now that, my friend, is an Irma. Willow had to back out of being bet monitor. She lay on Estelle's ugly couch, dressed as a scrum. Messy bun hair, unshowered, caramel popcorn between her molars. Estelle's rabbit-eared television picked up the Alloy's Heat game, but the reception looked like it had been flown in on a sea pelican with a transmitter strapped to its back. At times, Tarek looked like a character out of Monsters, Inc., stretched tall, animated eyes. Chase still looked perfect, even through the blips. Willow had to back out of bet monitor. She smeared bludgeoned heart's polish on her toenails, a saucy, deep red nod to all the single women out there with unattainable Chase Holbrooks in their lives, and ear-tested the excuses she would tell him. My life is just too crazy to babysit an athlete. It isn't you, it's me. Ugh, like she hadn't heard that odious line before. Our lifestyles are incompatible. But I know an octogenarian who would get all up in your wealth. Why don't you just try the truth? Estelle stomped into the room and plopped unceremoniously into her rainbow Afghan-covered recliner. All right. Willow straightened her spine and summoned something that would knock Estelle for a loop so that she would stop butting in. A man doesn't change, especially if he's wearing leopard-patterned Magnum boxer briefs. Estelle barely flinched. This was the woman who had a torrid affair with Liam Neeson's body double. Better. Willow smiled. Her life would spin out of control without Estelle's stable, sourpuss presence. The woman had been in her life since forever. She had taught her the beauty of candor and friendship and service to others, which was why Willow had stopped to visit Estelle's landlord on her way over and pay 2 months of back rent. The only thing Willow could afford to eat now was her fingernails, and there was no way she would invade Chase's pantry. Thus, soup at Estelle's for dinner. Men are seasons in your life, Willow. Some are summer, hot and sweaty, seemingly endless nights. Some are the excitement and newness of spring or the fleeting, elusive nature of fall. And then there are winters. Cold and detached? In Pittsburgh? Unwavering, lasting. Your point? It's okay to enjoy the summer every now and then. Like your Irishman. Estelle flashed what few teeth she could still claim. I want all seasons. I want what Mom and Dad have. Estelle's stare grew weary, nothing at all to do with the abnormally high turnover rate on the part of the Alloy's defense. Ah, yes. As rare as your underwear player missing a free throw. Willow smiled. Estelle's mind often failed on all but the essentials. I'll let you in on a secret. They, too, had their seasons. The cheese puffs bloated in Willow's stomach. She analyzed this news in her mind. Apart from the rare argument of Dad not entirely standing up to his family regarding Mom's wishes, they were iconic, granite, flirty summer and stable winters and everything in between. Estelle, what aren't you telling me? Cheese powder caked her throat dry, lodging scud around her words. Your mother showed up on my doorstep, not long after you were born, 4 boys and a baby in tow. Said she was done, that they had lost who they'd been and couldn't find their way back. What happened? 2 days later, they found it again. What they have is reality, child. Takes work. If you set expectations too high, reality never stands a chance. Hopefulness is good for a while, but it's a lonely place to live out your life. Estelle had remained single her entire life. Too brazen for a convent, she had curled up in a fantasy world where Irishman left his wife. He never did. Willow's cell phone rang. Dylan's photo filled the screen. She hesitated to answer, to leave Estelle adrift on a raft of sad memories, but the older woman had already rowed to shore, hollering at the game. Ref needs to get a wife so he'll stop screwing us. Willow bit back a grin and answered the phone. You see that bad call on my boy? Said Dylan. She hadn't. I know, right? Make any headway on that game? Mike is stoked. Between you and me, he really could use it right now. Got some bad news yesterday.
Willow didn't know if this was code for Dylan getting his news, or if there were truly two young men in this world who had just been unfairly screwed out of long, fulfilling lives. "That sucks, Dylan. For Mike, for you." She needed something to fill the quiet, vampire-ish void that sucked all the life out of the conversation. "I'm looking at the Knicks game coming up." "Are you serious?" The news kick-started his voice. "I can't wait to tell Mike." "Let's keep it on the down low, okay? Just until things are solid." "I gotcha. Hey, I miss you." "I miss you too, Squirt. Toe a straight line. Do everything your doctors tell you so we can make this happen, yeah?" "You got it. Tell your boy Holbrook to penetrate more when his threes are missing. It's like he's window shopping out there the past arc." Her boy. Right. "I'll pass it along." "Love," said Dylan. "Love." Willow hung up the call and thought about the envelope on Chase's dining room table. It was past time to refocus. Finish the bet. Take the money for Dylan. Guard her heart. She had plans to make, nursing school to finish, restaurants to open, none of which included a summer man in winter. Near midnight, Walt called Willow to let her know the floor team had flipped from ice to wood in record time. He would wait near the delivery bays to let her in. She asked about his bingo woman. He informed her she had moved on to another guy. Turns out even women came in seasons. Willow herself was most likely fall, fleeting, drifting, ever-changing. She packed up 2 servings of her homemade chicken noodle soup and toasted cheese floats she had made for Estelle, grabbed her athletic bag, and headed to the arena. Her gaze lingered on Chase's note affixed to her dash. She should have trashed it, but she liked the wallop of her stomach when it caught her eye. A little like the G-forces on a roller coaster. At the arena, she ate soup with Walt, explained to him about the seasons when placating words failed to help, still unsure if she bought the theory, then changed and got to work. She had been thinking about a new routine for days, one that would keep the audience guessing which Alloys player she imitated. Tarek was easy. His signature move after a particularly sweet goal was legendary. Wilcox was the juke master, nearly giving cameramen looking for close-ups whiplash in the process. Booth had a release that looked more like the pointed hands of a diver intent on sailing off a cliff. But Chase? His angle had stumped her for days. He was nothing if not straightforward, and the thought of slipping Bolt into a pair of magnums was too on the nose. She was pretty sure the brand didn't come in tent size, and in contrast to Estelle's commentary, Chase was so much more than an underwear guy. 2 hours later, she had failed to have an epiphany. She decided a long, cool shower and some sleep would clear her mind. Her best Bolt ideas came in transitional moments, when she wasn't really thinking about her routine at all. She had just packed her bag when a familiar voice cut the stark, sterile hum of the vacant area. 46. Chase's voice wrapped around her. Though her body was spent, the rich tenor of his declaration was an energy shot injected straight to her heart. He stood at a distance, half a court, maybe more. She knew the point tally, of course, had watched the game until the final buzzer. 46 was the number she had predicted when she slipped from under him the previous night. The team charter would have just landed. He wouldn't have even had time to go home. He had come straight to her. She didn't know what to say to him anymore. There was such a chasm between intent and want, so she simply repeated his accomplishment. 46. He dropped his duffel on the Alloy's center logo and half walked, half jogged to her. With each clip he moved faster, his eyes layered with greater intent. By the time he was within arm's reach, she knew what would happen. Chapter 10. Chase's long fingers threaded through her messy hair. He dipped his head as if a powerful thirst had driven him to a wellspring and he fully intended to drink her in. His lips captured hers, no pretense, no excuse, no hesitation, and no tongue. The kiss was as chaste as it was all-consuming. He released her. She blinked back her surprise, not at the ambush, but at being abandoned in the aftermath of a scorched libido. What was that for? I just had the best string of games in my career. I owe it all to you. It was absurd, really.
The notion of him thanking her. For what? For her bet monitoring aptitude? For the meals she left in his oven to fuel his quest for offensive greatness? For stopping him from what was sure to be the biggest sexual regret of his life? It wasn't as if she had banked all those shots. "You're welcome?" Her words hung suspended somewhere between statement and question. "I am so stoked and starving. Let's grab a bite." "At this hour?" "There has to be something around. I'll eat anything." "Anything?" Her first thought was hazelnut chocolate-stuffed crepes served on her bare abdomen. Her second thought, Alejandro. She had left the innuendo behind, mostly. Clearly he was jet-lagged. "Anything that doesn't lose me a bet, Warden." His smile disarmed her. God, he was a charmer. This level of sexy annihilation was the very thing that had left a minefield of broken hearts in his wake. Now she was Warden. She could live with that, so long as it kept the bet in place and their lips were where they belonged, wrapped around sarcasm they exchanged so well. Anything more than that and she was sure to be his next casualty. Head in the Flautas. Chase read the name on the side of the guacamole green food truck parked near the all-night bars. Beneath the letters, a baby sporting a sombrero rode a street taco like a go-kart. His stomach growled. "You said anything," Willow reminded him. "No, yeah, it's great." "Best tacos in the universe." Quite a claim coming from the head of the Gordon Ramsay fan club. "You're never gonna let me forget that, are you?" "Never." She rolled her eyes and bounded over to the order window. This was good. This was what they did best. The banter, the friendship. Not the tongue-jockeying that drove him to distraction. The kiss had been, well, fuck. He hadn't meant for it to happen. He was just so fucking grateful. She was the secret ingredient behind his streak. Her positivity, her magnetism, something. That meant absolutely everything had to remain status quo, no matter how much he was tempted to peel back layers that had nothing to do with her selfless personality and everything to do with her tight, compact, thoroughly animated body. "Willow!" A middle-aged Hispanic man with a horseshoe mustache set down his pen and ticket book and made his way to the truck's door. He bounded out onto the dark street, smooched Willow on both cheeks, and dropped a line of rapid-fire Spanish that Chase was certain not even Sol's Puerto Rican wife could have deciphered. "Alejandro, meet Chase." Willow held the man's hand and led him to the order window. "Nice to meet you, sir." Chase gripped Alejandro's offered hand. "Did Chase? I am a big fan, huge." "Thank you," said Chase. "Willow's a big fan of your food, I hear." "Best ambassador in the city, this one." Alejandro squeezed Willow in a bear hug. "What can I get you, mi amor?" "The usual, make it 2. Chase loved that she tried to pay. How long had it been since that happened? He pushed her hand aside and gave Alejandro a 50, dropping the change into the tip jar. The usual turned out to be 3 mini street tacos, 1 shrimp, 1 chicken, 1 brisket. Nothing but the freshest ingredients, stuffed to the brim, messy as shit. 1 bite, and Chase was sold. They settled side by side on a concrete picnic table nearby, a gateway to a larger city park beyond, but close enough to the street to be well lit. It was below freezing, probably mid-20s, and he was eating tacos out of a truck in the middle of a cold March night in Pittsburgh. Icicles on his ears were a distinct possibility, but he didn't care. He struggled to remember better food or company. "How did you find this place?" She took a healthy bite of the beef taco, which led to an avalanche of sour cream sliding down her chin. He pushed away the urge to lick it off. Instead, he reached for a napkin and swiped away the droplet. She barely missed a beat in the conversation. They had come to this union, so comfortable, so wholly in sync. It was as reassuring as it was baffling. Alejandro brought his daughter to the free clinic last year. She was struggling to see the board at school. He thought she just needed glasses, but the volunteer doc that day referred them to a specialist. Turns out Miranda had corneal disease. Without an expensive transplant, she'll be blind by adulthood. So Alejandro stays open all night, alternating shifts with his son to make extra money. Her story felt like a kick to the nuts. Until Willow, he had become desensitized to his wealth.
Even in the 11 short years it took to journey from destitute to privileged, he had thought nothing of four-figure meals, excursions like helicopter tours and private islands, and pricey sneakers that offered no redeeming features but status. If it hadn't been for Sol and Irma, though, Chase could be any one of Willow's charity cases. Willow must have noticed a shift in his demeanor. "Hey, you okay?"
"Just sucks, you know. I got a haircut yesterday that probably cost more than this guy makes in one night. I feel guilty."
He couldn't believe he had just laid that out there. Willow's unguarded filter, no doubt, rubbing off on him. "That's not why I tell you these things, Chase. Don't ever apologize for who you are or what you have. You're generous in other ways."
"Like?"
"Inspiration. How many kids do you think you've inspired to work hard, stay on their school teams, dream big?"
"It's basketball."
"And someday it will be something else. It's a stepping stone to even greater things. People will listen to what you have to say because you were one of the best players the game has ever seen. So make sure you say important things that change the world."
"You're amazing, you know that?"
Again with the fucking no filter. It was like one of the tacos had been stuffed with refried truth serum. Honesty on his tongue tasted new.
"You're always putting others first. When is it your turn?"
"You sound like my mother, begging me to finish school, finish anything, really."
"Smart someone."
He echoed the sentiment she had expressed about Sol's words in an earlier conversation. He knew she caught the reference when she gave his shoulder a shove. Her touch was an oven that radiated heat all over his body. "I've always just had an intuition about people. We all want the same things in life: security, freedom, love. Some just have a more difficult time reaching them. If I can help people get to theirs, then it's a life well lived. Maybe finishing isn't my thing. Maybe my gift is helping others start."
"Where does this infectious optimism come from?"
"My parents. My brothers, I suppose. One joined the Peace Corps. One's a Jesuit priest. Not everyone is so fortunate to be born into such a great family." She had all but gift-wrapped an invitation for him to open up. It was natural to segue into his family now. Her voice contained the slightest bidding. "Tell someone. Tell me."
"Has Henry told you about Sol?"
"A little, maybe. That you and Marcus and Henry were a few of his success stories."
"He watched me in a pickup game. Sent Marcus and Henry in before the other guys could kick my ass for hustling all their money. Told me later he thought I had the best natural touch he'd ever seen, but I wasn't interested in anything past what the game could get me. Money. I was a fucking rail. Sol thought I was doing drugs."
"Were you?"
"No. I learned early on I could get more out of people if I wasn't strung out. Sol made me a deal. Come to his gym when I wasn't in school and he would feed me. 3 solid meals a day and everything in between. I didn't care much for boxing and I was freakishly tall, so I stuck to basketball."
"What about your family?"
"Turns out having a son never took priority over their addictions. When I brought them alcohol or cigarettes, I was their golden boy, could do no wrong. But it never lasted. They get it in their head I did something wrong and I ceased to exist. When I was 10, they were busted for possession with intent to sell. Child Protective Services gave me to my grandparents."
"That must have provided some stability."
"In some ways. But they were old, sickly. They loved me but had no means to provide for me. When they died, Sol and his wife took me in. I saw what they did for Marcus, getting him out, getting him to the pros. I thought maybe they could do the same for me. It was never really about the game. Basketball was always a means to an end."
"And what about now? What's your end?" Chase had no answer for her, so he finished his final bite and looked out across the city. Not once had he stopped to think about what came after his record. "Want to know what I think?" she asked.
"Somehow I think you're going to tell me anyway."
He mentally braced himself. Thought she might tell him that he had never stopped trying to prove himself, to win favor, his parents, his coaches, the fans, the media. Though she'd be right, he didn't want to hear it, because head games like that have no end. When was good ever good enough? Championship ring? Household name? "I think your end is your true beginning." She tipped her head to rest on his shoulder. His throat tightened. He had never told another soul, not even Marcus or Henry, that basketball wasn't his passion. It felt like a secret dirtier than his drug phase at 15, or that he purposely chose to sleep with women to whom he had nothing to prove. As with everything else in his life, he had simply leveraged basketball to get what he wanted. Sitting beside Willow, he realized just how different she was. He wanted to prove everything to her, that he was so much more than a player in his money. He wanted to prove that he was worthy to be sitting beside her in the freezing cold, sharing a meal, confessing truths.
Ready to head home?
No. Her answer streaked by, impulsive, hasty. He tipped his mouth close to her forehead, close enough to kiss, but he dared not. This time, once he started, he would finish. No more holding back. For now, he still needed things as they were. Superstitious, maybe. Protective, completely. Instead, he rested his chin against her forehead and whispered against her soft hair.
What's going on, Willow?
He meant between them, but she took the safe route. I have a family thing in the morning early. At Ero's, that brunch place that overlooks the West End. Wouldn't make much sense to stay at your place.
Oh.
He failed to hide the disappointment in his voice. You can come if you want. It's just something we do once a month to celebrate things going on in each other's lives.
I don't do well with family things. Besides, I sleep in on game days.
Right. She knew that, didn't she? Still, she sounded defeated.
Can I drop you somewhere?
Sure. They drove mostly in silence, but for her voice wrapped around quiet directions. He pulled to a stop in front of a house that had seen better days. He wouldn't have pictured her here, in an old cracker-box cottage style with a broken-down porch swing and peeling paint. The $90 million contract chase didn't want to let her out of the car because they were in a subpar neighborhood with rampant crime. The chase that had bared his soul didn't want to let her out of the car because, beside him, she felt right. No hookups tonight, she warned. Her first grin in a while. Too long, plated her mouth.
No worries.
He wanted no other. 48 points? She had upped the ante. Apparently, this is what they did, exchange desire for points. At least that's what he did.
48 points.
Door propped open, she slid from the Hummer. Thanks for the tacos.
Willow?
Yeah? He wanted to ask her to change her mind, to come back to his place, because he wanted her. Because he wanted to be with her in a way that transcended sex. He thought to tell her that he had never met anyone like her, that her gift was in inspiring people to start because he was starting to fall for her. But in the end, his game won out. It was all he had known. For him, acceptance and love didn't exist without basketball.
Good night.
She waved and closed the door. He waited for her to enter the house before he drove home, determined to stay in bed and stay focused when brunch time rolled around the next morning. Eros was not a typical family gathering place. Likenesses of the Greek god peppered the decor, which led to uncomfortable questions from the under-5 crowd. Willow's second cousin, a sex therapist, served up a hearty dish of clinical reality by using the term penis and comparing Eros's junk to the pigs in a blanket on the buffet, while Estelle used the term willy, which led to confusion on the part of Willow's grandfather, William Bend III, who believed she was talking to him each time the subject matter arose. Estelle, always considered family, found endless delight in the diversion. Willow settled beside the old woman. Her waffle sandwich had been crafted to precise specifications. Over-easy egg, slightly broken, Canadian bacon, Swiss cheese, and spinach. Never mind that she could barely wrap her gums around her morning oatmeal. Estelle's taste buds were as ambitious as Willow's mother's attempt to crack open her only daughter's life and scour for shortcomings. Sweetheart, the enrollment deadline is in 2 days. Your father and I wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't push. Encourage. You've wanted to be a nurse since you threw up on the subway in New York. Fruit Loops all over that nice woman's camel hair jacket. That wasn't my moment, Ma. That was your moment, once you found out she was Barbra Streisand's biographer. If it isn't nursing, it should be something. Why? Why does it have to be something? I'm happy with my life, Ma. I do good things. I know you do, honey. It's just that your father and I want you to experience greatness."
"Pretty sure she has that covered," piped Estelle. She tossed out the term Willie again, just in case Willow missed her meaning. Grandpa turned. "What?" Estelle giggled. Willow wielded her fork in a mock threat.
"Something of great prominence," her mother continued. "Something the magnitude of which transcends everything that came before in your life."
Estelle choked on her waffle sandwich. Willow's mother gave the old woman a hearty slap between the shoulder blades to help her dislodge the offending mouthful. Her mother could not have known that her newfound appreciation for meditation and spiritual enlightenment had the power to give an 80-year-old woman a coronary from innuendo.
"Dear, go get Estelle some more drink."
Nothing at all to do with the choking. This was code for another mimosa, stat. Estelle floated through most of their family functions on happy juice. Alcohol had a way of numbing the woman's sadness at never having a family of her own. "No need, Willow. I believe there's a tall glass of water coming." Estelle flashed her jack-o'-lantern smile and pointed toward the entrance of the restaurant alcove. Willow turned and saw Chase standing in a collared, white button-down and gray slacks, hands in his pockets. He gave her a slight wave and a roguish smile, but was commandeered by a gaggle of ants who hadn't the slightest idea who he was, past the realization he was here to see Willow, who was notorious for never bringing anyone to their monthly gatherings. They ushered him to a choice seat near the head of the table. Introductions flew. His wide-eyed gaze tracked to her. He was a little like Eros, all whipped-up desire and confidence, until the tempest whirlwinds, the ants, had him at their mercy. She wasn't ready for him to be here, to be part of her family, to be part of her heart, which was her family. But he had sacrificed sleep and game day ritual to come. And he had never looked more handsome than he did when he shook Willie's hand. Willow glanced at Estelle.
"Don't even think about it."
Estelle giggled and wrapped her lips around another bite. Halfway through the family tale about a fishing expedition in which Willow liberated every last walleye from the cooler, Willow's grandfather asked what Chase did for a living. Before he could answer, they took bets around the table. Construction foreman. Look at those arms. Fireman. Home shopping channel pitchman. Have you seen that face? I'd buy anything he's selling. City councilman. Physical therapist. Look at those arms. Not one of them knew who he was beyond a guy named Chase, who came here to have breakfast with Willow and her family. Or if they knew, they didn't let on. They welcomed him into their conversation, their lives, taking a genuine interest in the things about him that had nothing to do with basketball, his hobbies, favorite wines, places he had traveled, the fertile fields of Iowa when he mentioned having attended college there, and his business degree, which most people forgot on the tide of his basketball success. Mostly they told stories about the practical jokes between Willow and her brothers, and they celebrated milestones, graduations, births, special school honors, even one of Willow's nephews for starting a donation box at his school for the homeless animals. They were warm and funny and grounded. He wasn't sure what else he expected. An extraordinary woman like Willow could come from nothing less than an extraordinary family. When the time had stretched long, he excused himself. At a chorus of disheartened awes, he informed them that he had to go to work, which pleased Willow's father wholeheartedly, after the string of jobless losers she's dated of late. Chase couldn't resist a grin aimed in her direction at that morsel of insight. He bid them goodbye, taking special care to hug the woman named Estelle, who kept winking at him. Certain she knew his identity but kept it under wraps, he decided she was Willow's inspiration when it came to her unconventional behavior. Willow escorted him to the restaurant foyer. When they were out of sight of prying eyes, he grabbed her hand and pulled her close. She had traded her usual gymnastics clothes and bolt fur for high boots and a slim skirt. Her hair was wavy and twisted in place on the sides with tiny glittery pins with clear and brown stones, and she wore just enough makeup to allow the real Willow to shine through. She had never looked more beautiful. "You came," she said, as if an entire hour later her eyes still might be lying to her. "Your family is great." She rolled her eyes. "They're overwhelming, even for me.
but I wouldn't trade him. Against the backdrop of a rainy glaze that had fallen on the city, she radiated an earthy kindness and authenticity and hope. "Wait for me after the game." "Chase, there's something I have to tell you."
"After the game, I'm all yours."
He meant it. In all ways, he wanted her. His enhanced performance all those times had nothing to do with celibacy and everything to do with siphoning off those who used him.
"I have to go. I'm already late for the team meeting." 48?
She seemed to be moving in slow motion. Her smile was languid but tender. 48. Nearby, a restaurant hostess lingered, her gaze repeatedly returning to Chase. Acutely aware of the public nature of their conversation, he pulled Willow into an embrace. A hint of soft vanilla filled his senses. He wanted to plant a scorching kiss on her, a promise of more to come. But she deserved better than to be kicked around in the media as Chase Holbrook's next plaything. He slipped away, but not before his vision caught the snap of a cell phone flash. Willow stacked her belongings by Chase's penthouse door. Why had she brought so much crap? Not only had she not waited for him after the game, she was sneaking out like a coward in the night. She had asked Walt to collect the vendor food, as he sometimes did for her, and take it to the precinct around the corner. The graveyard shift cops always made sure the food got to the shelter when she couldn't. She told herself she just didn't have it in her to wait, as Chase had asked, that her time as Bolt drained her, and Chase would have extra media interviews after he and Tarek pulled within one game of the offensive record. She told herself that every moment she wasn't with him was one moment closer to his goal and Dylan's money, because she was losing all ability to remain neutral where he was concerned. But those were all half-truths. Willow stacked her belongings to leave because she never finished anything. She was just making the judgment call to leave Quetz as a parting gift when she heard keys jingle on the other side of the lock. Her limbs froze, her heart leapt in her throat. Chase, here, now, meant coughing up answers she was unprepared to give. Unable to meet his eyes when he came through the door, her gaze drifted across the darkened foyer to his polished tile floor. City lights from his open blinds spilled across the polished surface like 1,000 gemstones spilled in a moment of carelessness. Not unlike her heart would be if she didn't get out of here. Willow Bend, the girl with nothing to her name but empathy, the girl who burned hot on too many dreams but followed through on none of them. The girl who wore a blue muskrat costume because she was afraid to fail as herself would never, ever fit into Chase Holbrook's highly focused, high-achieving, gemstone-paved world. Chase searched the shadows. His movements hurried before he, too, stopped. He straightened to his full, glorious height that nearly eclipsed the moon.
"Willow, what are you—"
He glanced around at his feet, then added his duffel to her mountain of belongings.
"Are you leaving?"
"Yes."
"Why? Why didn't you wait for me?"
"I can't do this anymore, Chase."
"If this is about the stupid bet—"
"It isn't. Not anymore. I need all the seasons, not just summer. If I stay here, you'll be my summer. A white-hot, sweaty, amazing summer, but a fleeting season, nevertheless, just like your game."
"What are you talking about?"
"This isn't real, Chase. Your photo shoots and trips to Fiji and the lead bachelor story on the gossip mags. And I'm the mascot girl who smells like ball sweat and got evicted because I can't focus on any one thing long enough to make a go of it." He crossed his arms, a defensive move as any he had ever displayed on the course.
"That why you agreed to this? Because you had nowhere else to go?"
"Yes."
"Whose house was that yesterday?"
"Estelle, treasurer and lead historian of the Alloy's Senior Hoops Club."
"She did know who I was."
"The woman sleeps in Magnum underwear." Chase chuckled. The sound, rich and resonant, released some of the stifling tension. He uncrossed his arms and inched closer. The vacuum of his nearness created in her core suppressed her breath.
"None of those things are me, Willow."
Another step closer, like his pursuit across the court at 2 a.m., but painstaking, deliberate. "And the women?"
"Never made me feel like this. Like a better person just for being around them."
That's me, Mother Teresa. Cast-off clothes, mismatched socks, self-haircuts in the mirror. She would never measure up to the exotic, jet-setting women with which Chase aligned himself. Any affection would be strictly charity in comparison. Mother Teresa wouldn't have me emptying my wallet in the lust jar over there. You added the money after your date with Fallon. That money wasn't because of Fallon. No. She kept her voice light, coy, innocent, so he would have to go there. Reassure her that he didn't think of her as some asexual missionary whose proximity made him feel good about himself. He reached for her hips, his wide hands firm but agile, and guided her into a union that left no space between them. It was the first time their bodies had been flush, he so much taller than she. Had they been on the court, a moving violation, a progressive pick, a full-body charge, something. No. Eyes clenched tight, she reminded herself Chase was a season, nothing more. He had always been a summer. He would always be a summer. It's okay to enjoy the summer every now and then. What about the bet? She needed that money. Fuck the bet. I don't care about that anymore. Not the way I care about you. She sifted that development through her mind. Tarek wins. Goodbye 10 grand. Goodbye Dylan. She felt sick. Making this about the money was no different a crime than the shallowness of which she was accusing Chase. She was better than that. If she was going to make a choice here, it couldn't be about the money. And your record? Chase scooped her up, her emitting a tiny, surprised yelp, and him barely breaking breath from her added weight. He placed her on the kitchen counter so they were nose to nose. Since you, I've played my best ball ever. And what about after? What's your end here? Willow hoped her meaning was clear. She wouldn't just be another knot on his drawstring. Since you, I've played my best life ever. That won't change with the record. That dimple. Gah! He nuzzled her ear, his voice barely rising above a thought. Let me put you first. For once in your life, let someone put you first. The prospect roused her. Sometimes it was exhausting to think about everyone else, to suppress her needs and wants. Sometimes she just wanted to be selfish. It's okay to enjoy the summer every now and then. Her honorable intent collapsed like a cream puff mixed at conflicting temperatures, her resolve frosty, her body sizzling. One request? She said, bashfully biting her lip. Anything. Chapter 11. Actually, she had more than one request. Currently, the list was reproducing like it was on a circular loop. All the ways she wanted the most beautiful man in the world to put her first. But her numero uno request was of paramount importance. There was no effing way Willow was checking into Holbrook Hotel and Hump Spa smelling like Bolt. At the prospect of exploring each other first in the shower, Chase stripped off his athletic warm-up jacket, an action she had seen him perform 1,000 times courtside. Of course, he usually had a number 28 jersey on underneath. Nope, no jersey this time. Just the close-cropped shrubbery of a manscape, sprouted from smooth, contoured granite. He wagged his brows, as if to say, your turn. No fair. Show me something I don't see on a commercial every night. Chase stepped out of his shoe. Sock, too. He was trying not to laugh, really, but he reached down to slip off his athletic sock, lost his balance, and had to grab the countertop to right himself. At his smile, locked inside an exquisite frame of nakedness, he could have stuck a nearby fork in her. She was cooked. Blood no longer in your ears for balance, eh? He wagged his brows again. So, they were going to do this. Strip in his kitchen. Take turns. Go up in flames. She removed her ponytail holders and shook out her hair, a complete wreck from 60-plus minutes inside a 50-pound costume. He shook his head. More dimples. Shit. Because brainwaves ceased in his nearness, she glanced down at her options.
her elephants can't jump baseball shirt, red spandex boy shorts, literally nothing else. Blue fur was an inferno made no better with underthings. She reached for the hem of her shirt, Holbrook style, and went for it.
Sorry, readers, here's where we fade to black due to YouTube explicit content guidelines. If you dream for the steam, you'll need to take a look in the book.
The Chase show is so much better than I imagined. He chuckled against her ear, pulled her closer, and kissed her shoulder.
You haven't seen anything until the sequel in the back of the Vega.
Chapter 12.
Rain that night tapped a barely there rhythm against the window. The reason sleep eluded him. At least that's what Chase told himself. Willow burrowed deeper under the covers beside him. He took her movement as an opportunity to slide his arm free, pull on some shorts, and try to find sleep at the bottom of a glass of milk. In the kitchen, where he had stripped himself bare, heart, head, everything, he poured a drink and settled on the counter in darkness to watch flakes in their downward spiral on the terrace. Their time together had been incredible. She was as generous a lover as she was giving in every aspect of her life. He believed, inside her, existed an entire world that would take him a lifetime to discover, a world of depth and color, shades of struggle and joy and mercy, and all the exhilarating chaos of a life fully lived. And as much as he worried that he might quickly drown in that kind of chaos, he worried about something else even more. Being attached to any one person, any one thing, had never played out well for him. Time and time again, those he allowed a permanent piece of him had made it conditional. His parents loved him if he stole a bottle of JD from the corner store. His grandparents loved him if he didn't remind them of what a failure their son had turned out to be. Saul loved him if he towed the line, studied hard, kept his nose clean. His Iowa coach loved him for bringing them to the Sweet 16 2 years straight. Coach Perkins loved him because he filled seats. Fans loved him when he led the team to victory and crucified him when he had an off game. Time and again, love had proved elusive, fleeting, based on what he did, not who he was. And then there was Willow. She existed inside a bubble of unconditional love, the likes of which he had never known. No matter how many times she made mistakes, her family was there to pick her up. At the previous night's game, Chase had spotted her mother and father in the stands. They came right before Bolt's big performance between the third and fourth quarters and left directly after Bolt's performance. It was no wonder they didn't know Chase from the other scabs Willow had dated. Not everyone deserved love and acceptance like that. Certainly not Chase. A text tone from Willow's cell on the counter snagged him from his thoughts. He shouldn't look, but the rain tapped and the milk had yet to kick in. He gave in to temptation. Dylan. You get close enough to Chase to get that invite yet? Probably like LeBron. Nearly impossible without a death wish, LOL. Milk curdled in Chase's stomach. That someone would make a joke about dying to get close to him. That Willow had any hand in it. He hopped off the counter feeling as if he'd gotten a size 14 sneaker straight to the nuts. Everything he knew, everything he believed about Willow reshuffled, recalculated, reassimilated back into two fundamental beliefs about his life. People enter my life for the wrong reasons, and everyone has conditions. Who was this fucking Dylan? Why had Chase been all up in Willow's crazy fucking world for weeks, and he'd heard no mention of this guy? As if on cue, he heard the shp 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 of her unicorn slippers crossing the penthouse tile toward him. He was grateful for the darkness. Would make this easier. Get your shit and get out. Tendons in his neck tensed. He catalogued the raindrops. What? That one word from her lips had two distinct layers, sleepy and horror-struck. Chase, what's wrong? He slid the phone across the smooth granite toward her. She pressed the home button and scanned the messages. Chase. Don't fucking chase me. It was bad enough you used me for a place to live. I could live with that because you give away every goddamn thing you own. At least I believed you did until 5 minutes ago. But to insinuate yourself into my life so some guy named Dylan could meet me? It's fucking wrong, Willow. Get out. I never took the money. Listen to me. Take your Central American god of bullshit betrayal and the rest of your crazy-ass junk and get out. His voice felt unhinged and raw, screaming past his throat. He picked up the ugly mask off the kitchen counter and smashed it to the floor. Willow jumped and scrambled backward. Her eyes were wide. She straightened. With as much height as she could summon, chin parallel to the floor, she quaked out her response. I see your ego-driven reputation is holding firm. Her bottom lip trembled. He convinced himself he didn't care. Take off my goddamn jersey on your way out. Chase stormed to the terrace and punished his barely clothed body in the cold rain. He wanted numbness to settle in so he didn't have to feel the pickaxe she had wedged in his chest and pried open with her intent. The numbness came. The hurt remained. Chase knew 2 minutes into the away game in Dallas he was done. The Mavericks' defense out-hustled him, Tarek outshot him, and the net had plastic wrap over the rim on every goddamn jumper, and the rabid home fans in their quest for a playoff slot wormed into his head and crowded out his focus so he couldn't think. Coach sent him in the final stretch, probably as punishment. This time, Chase was on the receiving end of humiliation. No chance to catch up. But something more powerful would happen tonight. Coach kept Tarek on the court, too. No one wanted to sail into the record books from the bench. Wilcox passed it to Chase on an inbound. Tarek would have his time. Chase just wanted one more shot. He tried to pump fake, but the defensive player read his eyes, was younger, faster. Colin Mackley paralleled his rising action and slammed the ball to the court, dishing out a decisive block. The mics near the rim picked up the denial like nails driven into a coffin. The mics also picked up the collective ohs from the fans. The ball bounced out of bounds. Whistles blew. Chase's gaze drifted to the key. Tarek had been wide open. Chase drilled the ball into the worn paint, set his feet, and executed a near-perfect three-pointer. Net only, no sound. And no one inside Saul's darkened gym but him to acknowledge it. At least he thought. Best arc in the NBA. Willow's voice hit him like the ball hit the floor after a shot, a slow, decisive beat that echoed through the hollow spaces of his chest. He hustled after the ball, because he didn't want her to see the guy he was before she walked in. The guy who alternated passing tantrums against the concrete walls and sat on the basketball, forehead gripped in his hands. You shouldn't be here. Henry called me. He had no right. Chase banked another close-range shot. I'm sorry about the record. So very Willow, blunt to a fault. He didn't dignify the statement with an answer. She wouldn't have liked his response. He dribbled, hard, established eye contact with her and released a blind shot. Swish. His way of proving she had no part in his game, no power over him whatsoever. I feel responsible. Don't flatter yourself. Contrary to what your family would have everyone believe, the world doesn't revolve around Willow. What's that supposed to mean? He propped the ball against his hip. They have seats most people would kill for. Yet they come to the game for 3 minutes to watch their daughter romp around in a fucking costume, then leave. What the hell is that? Those 3 minutes are gymnastics lessons and failed Olympic tryouts and 5 seasons of mediocre basketball and everything else I have epically failed at. So why bother? Because it's important to me. Her words treaded against tears. It isn't about performing. It's about them supporting me in what I love. That's family. He set his feet and shot. Swish. Yeah, well, I wouldn't know. You would if you opened yourself up to the chance. Basketball gives me my family. He chased down the ball, pinned it to the wall, and grabbed his keys. When he turned, she stood alone on the court, fighting for one final shot. You are so arrogant. Fans pay a fortune to come and see you play night after night, and that somehow gives you validation. But what really matters is the reason people come to see you. All these people recognize you, but they don't know you. You put up this mask of playboy and bachelor about town to keep people at a distance, to keep them from knowing the real you. The you I fell in love with. So very Willow, blunt to a fault. Don't. His voice cracked on the warning. He cleared his throat. I could say the same about you, hiding behind a costume, being everything to everyone else because you have no idea who you are or what you want. She swiped at her cheek. In the darkness, she might as well have been brushing aside a wayward hair, but he knew she was crying. He heard it in the distressed notes of her voice. I finally know what I want. That didn't change that night you asked me to leave. It still hasn't changed. I want the kind of love that doesn't end with a season. Fuck. He didn't navigate tears. We're done, Willow. People who give unconditional love, through all the mistakes, are the ones who deserve it back. I made a mistake not telling you about Dylan. I'm sorry. But he's the real reason I took the bet. He's my 15-year-old nephew who would have met you months ago if he hadn't given away his Make-A-Wish to someone who is dying faster than he is. Her explanation, the one he never allowed the night he kicked her out, was an icy fist around his heart. Winter had blown in on a blizzard that buried his chest. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. I took the bet so I could find out if you were the stand-up guy Tarek said you were. Dylan idolizes you. But his heart, the one that's 3 sizes larger than mine will ever be, can't take another disappointment. I had to find out if Chase Holbrook was worthy of that kind of unconditional love. She removed a piece of paper from her pocket and laid it on the court. Turns out, he's not. Her footfall subsided until quiet reigned once again. He waited until she was gone, long gone, then crossed to her offering and picked it up. It was a newspaper article, an obituary. Javier Christian Villanueva, presidential whiz kid, wearing number 28 jersey in his last picture. Chase collapsed to the wood and wept. Estelle's back porch was an unlikely refuge. The legs of the iron patio chair wobbled. The polar west wind skated along the river and curled through the alcove created between neighboring houses. The night was restless with emergency sirens, and somewhere, nearby, a stray cat had marked its territory. Willow had mummified herself in a lumpy down comforter and parked where she could see a sliver of the city. Somehow, pulling the icy air into her lungs was a tangible reminder of life and its fragility. Blessings. She was here. Javier wasn't. Dylan soon wouldn't be. Why was a girl who had nothing to show for this life still here? When others with immense talent, others who had more to offer, were taken too soon. She thought of Chase's success, his singularity of focus. Since the age of 15, he had dedicated himself to the one thing, and one thing only. Maybe that was the key. Pick one thing, forsake all others. Or maybe the answer was somewhere between the two extremes. Around midnight, Estelle hobbled out with a cup of abysmal coffee and a sassy mouth. You'll catch your death out here. She zipped her old woman marshmallow puffcoat and settled into another iron chair beside her. Might be an improvement. Bite your tongue, young lady. The good Lord may have deemed me too mouthy to serve him as a sister, but that doesn't mean I can't do his work before he calls me home. Life is good, and no man, not even the Chase Holbrooks of the world, are worth believing any different. Not even your Liam? Let me tell you something about Liam. I never knew him, the real him, until the moment I stopped expecting him to be perfect. Is that the moment you told him goodbye? No. That's the moment I fell in love. Willow buried her face with the blanket's edge, mostly to catch tears before they fell. Again. He won't speak to me. He won't even look at me. These things have a way about them. Sounds like something my mother would say. I could use a shot of Estelle right now. All right. Quit your damn belly aching. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and consider that you ran this off into the ditch before it had a chance, because your expectations are impossible. Maybe he has a good reason to keep people at arm's distance. He'll never be you, which is a damn good thing. The world can't handle more than one of you. Exhausts me just to be around you." Willow gave a weak smile. "Wake up tomorrow with purpose and don't look back." At the mention of tomorrow, Willow groaned. The Wish Foundation had come through where she had failed. Day after tomorrow, Dylan would arrive with a medical entourage, expecting the exclusive Chase Holbrook experience. Thomas had called her to let her know that transport on another specialty plane bound for Pittsburgh opened up, and everything had been arranged but the one-on-one with Chase. That, they figured, would best come from someone on the inside. How could she tell Dylan that she had irrevocably screwed any chance of fulfilling his most important wish? "I said awful things." "Then find a way to unsay them." "How?" Estelle grunted to standing and kissed Willow on the top of her head. "In the only way you can, my dear. Don't stay out here too long. I've got more important things to do in the morning than to thaw a frozen body." She left Willow to her thoughts. Chase's words returned to her. "Basketball is my family." Estelle's words quickly followed. "Wake up tomorrow with purpose and don't look back." She grabbed her cell off the table and pulled up Bolt's social media account. 6 million followers. An adrenaline pump rocketed through her arteries. In a way only Willow could. It was a start. Chapter 13. After morning practice, Alloy's players spilled into the locker room. Chase stuffed his duffel to head home. Tarek turned off the wall of televisions, plunging the space into rare silence. Fine by him. Since Tarek had shattered the record, Chase had gone on a strict media diet. The 16 grown-assed men staring at him with nothing to say proved more troublesome. Chase's gut dropped to his sneakers. Booth spun his padded chair around, and Nunzio used his 7'1", 280-pound persuasion to make sure Chase took the offered seat. The rest of the team gathered around. Tarek dropped a stack of hundreds on the carpet's center Alloy's logo. Imprinted on the paper bank band, 10 grand. "What's this?" asked Chase. "Tainted money, my friend," said Tarek. "You won the bet fair and square." "Doesn't matter. Can't keep it for all the trouble it's caused." "What are you talking about?" Rogers stepped forward and dropped a couple of hundreds on the stack. "My part of the bet pool. Day I came here, Willow found my grandmother a wheelchair. She's always wanted to see me play. Willow stayed with her all day, made sure food services piled up a special plate for her. That's the day the granny cam tradition started. Every time my grandmother came to a game, Willow adopted her, made sure she felt like royalty. That's solid, man." Rogers took a step back. Wilcox stepped forward and dropped more cash on the pile. No fucking way he was sitting through this. It was too intervention, too blame game. He tried to stand. "Guys?" 2 of Nunzio's fingers on his shoulders changed his mind. Chase settled back, arms crossed. He didn't have to listen. "Those anonymous presents wrapped and waiting for us in our lockers on our birthdays," said Wilcox. "Willow, man. Never none of that store-bought shit. Always something homemade just for us. Tarek gets a king cake with a baby shoved inside each year. Rogers got a quilt patched with the jerseys of every team he'd ever played for, and that's a fucking lot of teams, man. Dude gets traded more than insults at a NASCAR race." The room filled with chuckles. "Me?" said Wilcox. "A framed artist's rendering of each of my tats, man. Different one each year, 2 so far. Each one of them damn personal." Nunzio followed suit. Money and the story. "Year I came here, Willow put on a bachelor's auction, raised 100 grand for the flood victims in my hometown. Makes me choke up every damn time I think about it." The hitch in Nunzio's normally powerful voice caught Chase's ear, and he began listening. Really listening. 12 more players stepped forward, each dropping a testimonial about Willow's character, along with a wad of cash on the pile until Tarek's money had doubled, more than doubled. When everyone had their say, Tarek settled in a backward chair, eye to eye with Chase. "You got it all wrong, brother. Willow got caught up in it because she was doing what she does best, making the lives of others around her better. The chase that gave me a run this year, that inspired me to be my best, that chase was never better than when you were with her. This chase here, the one who can't see what an amazing person Willow is, that she's worth fighting for, that's a chase that doesn't deserve someone like her. That's a chase I don't want to know. And in an irritatingly choreographed group move, they bailed. Every last one of them left him alone, feeling like he had consumed the dirty pile of money instead of merely having it dumped at his feet like some sacrificial plea to a goddess who could do no wrong. He waited for a few minutes. No one returned. He couldn't leave the money there, so he shoved it into a spare duffel. In an hour's time, he bypassed his Hummer in the secured lot, a few dozen cabs, and a proposition from 2 college girls for a ride in favor of a walk. A long, wet, cold-as-shit, soul-reaping walk. He had no aim, no direction. Truth told, he hadn't since Willow left. Correction, since he kicked Willow out. The wind shifted. Chase looked up from his perpetual stare at the icy pavement to see a green truck with a drunk-looking baby on the side, head in the flautas. Alejandro spotted him. "Aya, numero 28! He exited his truck and gave Chase a handshake man-hug combo that drove away the chill. "You make our city proud. Anything you want on the house." "I'll have Willow's favorite." It was the first time he had uttered her name in days. Her name on his tongue felt foreign, right, and everything in between. Alejandro prepared him a steaming plate. Chase ate it on the cement picnic table he had shared with her. Best tacos in town, and he couldn't taste them. By the time he had finished all 3, he knew what he had to do. What Willow would do. More importantly, he realized what he would do. Chase pulled out a fat black marker from his bag that he carried for autographs and wrote a message on his empty plate. For Miranda. He waited until Alejandro grew busy with customers, then placed the duffel containing the money just inside the food truck's door, plate on top, and walked away. Or maybe he floated. It was a little out of body, finding yourself again after losing the one thing you'd wanted for so long. This time, nothing to do with basketball. Everything to do with his endgame. He slipped his cell phone from his pocket and dialed. After asking Tarek to cover him at the next day's 9 a.m. shoot-around, he hailed a cab back to his SUV. One unifying piece of his puzzle remained. Well, a couple dozen if he counted Quetz. Willow's last-ditch effort at distracting Dylan from his chase goal, food coma. The arena vendor's food was good for nothing if not the tasty, fatty, globular, brain-suckling carbs that could short-circuit nodes of memory in the brain. Dylan patted his belly. "No way. I won't eat for a week after that team meal." Tarek had relayed to Dylan their rookie initiation that involved the food service's craft table and a 6-course meal an hour before play. The story devolved into an appreciative vomit fest, the most delightful part of which for Dylan was the professional name-dropping. DeMarcus Shane yacked. Dylan had pumped his knees with glee. "Oh my God, that's great." What was great was Tarek's thorough and time-consuming tour of the Alloys locker room. And though female sportscasters had been known to breach the inner sanctum, apparently mascots were strictly off-limits. "Guy time," said Tarek. "You understand?" He had ushered Dylan away for a workout with the rookies. Some free weights, some non-strenuous hoops, free throws mostly. A coach presentation of the league-authentic jersey with his last name stitched on the back, and a ton of other things that testosterone-driven teenagers and athletes bonded over for the 2 hours they were sequestered. By comparison, Willow's tour of the staff-only back areas of the arena, including the multi-million-dollar owner suite, probably ranked just above Dylan's laborious disembarking of his medical plane. Release forms, strict instructions, bags of medications which he was to keep on his person at all times, an extra bag of fluids, and his introduction to a grouchy nurse escort that looked slightly younger than Estelle. With 2 hours to go until tip-off, the kid looked cashed out. And Willow was out of distractions.
Not once had he mentioned his idol. She knew Dylan well enough to know he was being polite. Everyone had already done so much. He didn't want to seem ungrateful. Dylan lowered himself into a courtside chair. Thomas hovered, as he often did. "You okay, pal?" "Sure, Dad, fine." Dylan didn't look fine. He looked pale, gray. Thomas glanced at Willow. Prominent lines had sprouted in parentheses around his mouth and at the corners of his eyes. Her brother had aged so much since his son's diagnosis. She supposed if Thomas had stayed close to family, his burden wouldn't have been as great. But in New York, he was on an island. Willow embraced him. He squeezed back, lowered his mouth close to her ear, and choked out, barely above a whisper, "Thank you for this." Waterworks sprouted in her eyes, but she couldn't let Dylan see. Dylan's grouchy nurse saved the day with an emergency tissue tucked in her sleeve. Willow supposed the woman was used to tears on assignments like this. Willow glanced around at her family, all of them, 22 in number, including Estelle, gathered for the first time since Christmas, laughing, hugging, enjoying each other in a way they never would again. A gravity of love. Without a chance at the playoffs, tonight was the final Alloy's home game of the season, and Willow's final game as Bolt. If she was working toward a focus, toward her dreams, it couldn't be as smelly blue muskrat. No one grows up wanting to be a mascot, and it was past time for her to grow up. Starting now. She sat beside Dylan and held his hand. "Sup?" He flashed a weak smile. "There's a bed in the training room where Steve Nash napped when Golden State came to play. I can hook you up." "I'm good. Dill, listen. I know this day isn't everything you wanted. Are you kidding me? It's more than I dreamed. But meeting Chase," a familiar voice broke into the conversation, "didn't quite rank up there with meeting all the Alloy's dancers at the same time." Her family gathering parted like Moses and the Red Sea. Chase entered the fold in a flurry of handshakes, backpats, and a one-cheek kiss for a very flushed Estelle. Willow's chin spilled to her lap like stale popcorn on a buzzer beater. Dylan grinned. "Yeah, that was epic. Wait till Mike sees that photo." Chase and Dylan exchanged a handshake so complex it could only have been germinated and perfected at another time, in another place. Her nephew hadn't asked about Chase, because they had already met. Chase's gaze collided with Willow's open-mouthed stare. His lips stretched taut on a quick grin before he refocused on Dylan. That dimple. Gah. Had she blinked, she would have missed it. "Where is Mike?" Willow asked. "I thought he was coming." "Chase hooked him up with the Knicks. He's there right now." Dylan held out a photo on a cell phone of Mike with Carmelo Anthony. The part of Willow's brain that had generated speech failed. Turns out Chase Holbrook was worthy, the stuff of heroes. "See you after the game, man? You can be front and center in the media room with me." Dylan's eyes lit up. "Definitely." Chase said his goodbyes, reserving one final, indecipherable glance for Willow, then turned and jogged across the court and into the tunnel. This prompted Estelle to declare, "That man is hotter than the devil's backside after eating jalapenos." At which 22 relations to the Bend family name laughed until they sprouted more tears, this time of joy. Chase had been dreading the post-game theatrics. But in the 48 hours since Tarek had shattered the offensive ceiling, Chase had come around. Did he wish he was standing in front of the NBA commissioner on a red carpet rolled out at center court, getting an award? Sure. But if he had to get out-hustled, Chase wouldn't have wanted the honor to go to anyone else. He felt like a proud brother. In many ways, he was. His gaze drifted courtside. Willow's family packed the first 2 rows opposite the Alloy's bench. Dylan had the biggest smile of all of them. Chase hadn't been able to give Javier the mega-fan experience, but he hoped, in some small way, making sure Dylan and Mike had their wishes made up for it. Chase swore Dylan to secrecy when, together, they met with a Wish Foundation representative and gave away Dylan's wish a second time.
The arena full of near-deafening cheers went up at the announcement of Tarek's name. Bolt jumped up and down like a blue muskrat with feet springs. Chase clapped and laughed. He didn't know where he stood with Willow, but it felt a little like beginning again. Minus the part where he doubled down on the kids and the mentally challenged comment. Tarek went down the line of teammates, shaking hands, embracing. The audience roar subsided. The commissioner spoke again. "We have one other item of business to take care of tonight. I'd like to ask Chase Holbrook to come to center court." A stab of uncertainty, something close to panic, seized Chase's lungs. This wasn't part of the team briefing 30 minutes ago. He glanced at the cluster of teammates, those within reach smacking his shoulders, the rest smiling his direction. His legs didn't process what was happening until Tarek joined him. "Don't keep the commissioner waiting." "Is this a prank, dude?" "No, man. Not this time." Chase walked the far end of the team line toward center court. When it took too long, he jogged a bit. The awkward dwindle of audience noise picked up with his increased hustle. He gave a casual wave to the fans. He thought maybe crawling under the red carpet was a good option. The commissioner shook his hand. Chase took the space beside him. "Each year," began the commissioner, "fans get an opportunity to become involved in the celebration of this great sport by getting one collective vote on the panel of sports writers and broadcasters representing the United States and Canada. This honor, proudly sponsored by a car company with strong roots right here, in this fine city." The media screens flashed with reels of sports cars speeding down the highway and a splashy logo. Audience cheers swelled. Oh, God. Chase glanced at Tarek. His buddy smiled and nodded his head. "Opens up to voting on the first day of the season and continues right up until the panel convenes. 2 days ago, Chase Holbrook was in the running with 10 other players around the league for the most number of fan-favorite votes. Then, this happened." The lights in the arena went on a slow dim. The media screens lit with Chase's usual player introduction, then segued into a video package he had never seen before. Sound blasted across the arena, a mixture of a slow piano tune and voiceovers. A wobbly cell phone video played. Javier's face filled the jumbotron. Chase didn't even remember Willow filming. Instantly, his nose began to sting. Oh, God, I'm going to lose it right here on national television. The home movie transitioned into an interview clip of a woman. The caption read, "Maria Villanueva, Javier's mother." She talked about her son's final days, how he told everyone who would listen about how Chase Holbrook surprised him in his hospital room and hung out with him all night. Her voice continued to narrate over video of Chase dancing in Bolt's costume. Quiet moments of her son and Chase reclined together, watching the Alloys game and squeezing mashed potatoes through their teeth in tandem. Laughter rose from the darkened audience. He scanned the stands for Bolt, but the lights were too dim. Next up, a few of his teammates, ribbing him, giving away his secrets like a drive-through burger runs in the middle of the night where Chase pays for the next 20 cars and never being able to pass a kid's lemonade stand without stopping and drinking their entire inventory, which someone had caught on camera. They talked about his USO tour the previous year to Afghanistan, along with Marcus and other professional athletes, and flashed photos of him with men and women in uniform. Then came the interviews. Grady. Loretta, the pediatric night nurse. Sam, in a dress. The nutty Norwegian, who called him stud and roused a cacophony of whistles and cheers from the female fans. Clarence, Crazy Jack Donson with his shoe story, thankfully leaving out the part of the discussion about Willow. Millicent, with her fancy scarf. A handful of kids from Saul's gym, now Henry's, that Chase mentored. A woman from the local women's shelter, with an old mayonnaise jar and a story about how she found it in their night drop filled with money, and Chase's collectible player's card. Dylan and Mike. Alejandro and his beautiful daughter, who blew a kiss to the camera for Chase. The video was supreme. Masterfully edited, fancy graphics, spliced with endless photos fans had sent in, perfectly orchestrated with music, worthy of a special feature on ESPN. all working toward an emotional climax. The music quieted. Javier returned. He talked about his hope that there was basketball in heaven. Maria read a thank you letter Javier wrote to Chase but never got the opportunity to send. In heaven, I know you will be a part of my love gravity. We can shoot some hoops sometime. I might even beat you. It is heaven after all. But please, no dancing. Never dancing. The video cut to Chase's best moves in a blue muskrat costume. Again, laughter swelled from the fans. The final clip went out on a black screen, Javier's picture in a number 28 jersey and the opening and closing dates of his life. When the arena lights went up, Chase was absolutely certain about 3 things. First, that he had become so swept up in the stories, he had forgotten to keep a check on his emotions and had to swipe at tears lingering on his cheeks. Second, that he didn't need the NBA commissioner to lean close to his ear and tell him, "They love you, son," because Chase could feel the standing ovation thundering through his entire body. Not because he outscored, not because he brought victory, but because of him, Chase, the man he was off the court. And third, that this honor had Willow written all over it. A spotlight found him. The commissioner raised his mic and continued when the fan noise died down. 2 days ago, Chase Holbrook was in the running with 10 other players around the league for the most number of fan-favorite votes. Then, this video happened, and it went viral. And now, it is my extreme honor to present to you this season's fan vote for Most Valuable Player. Cheers exploded. He handed Chase a plaque, shook his hand. Camera bulbs flashed in his field of vision. Passing out was a distinct possibility. The commissioner handed Chase his microphone. "Say a few words, son." Chance glanced out at 20,000 people assembled, at network cameras, at his coach and teammates, whistling and catcalling. Tarek, more animated than all the rest. Chase raised the mic to his mouth but couldn't speak. The hesitation whipped the audience into a greater frenzy. He laughed and rested the mic against his jersey. His face grew hot from the lights, from the flush of trying not to lose it on national television. He had zero confidence his voice would be there when he most needed it. He swallowed the thickness clogging his throat. His brain managed to pump out his thanks to the commissioner and the league, his fans, the special people in the video, and the friends he had made along the way, his coaches and teammates. His fans again, which incited another rush of cheers. But who he most thought about during his acceptance was the one person without whom none of this was possible. "And I want to thank a very special person who inspired nearly everything you saw in that video and coached me into the kind of man I want to be." Chase knew Willow would adhere to her strict mascot rules. He also knew he couldn't stay center court one more minute without her. He raised his hand to block the spotlight and searched courtside in vain until one geriatric voice rose above the crowd. "Over here, Magnum!" Estelle. Chase laughed and tracked the direction of Estelle's outburst. 20 rows up, Bolt stood frozen on the aisle steps. He handed the microphone to the commissioner and jogged toward the mascot, taking the steps 2 at a time. Arena lights came up. Music kicked in. The crowd went nuts, standing, craning necks, snapping photos, cheering and talking. At least that's what it seemed. Chase only had eyes for a furry blue muskrat. He ambushed Willow on the same step, lifted off Bolt's head, and planted a kiss on the surprised O of her lips. She melted into him. Well, as much as she could with a wire cage and 50 pounds of fake blue hair between them. When he finally released her lips, he pulled back and asked, "How did you pull that off? All that video? Finding Clarence?" "My request from Bolt's social media went viral. Someone at a shelter in LA remembered a guy talking about your shoes, and I know a few people who helped me edit it together." "You know more than a few people." "True, but there's only one person I want to know right now." He smothered her last words on another kiss. And, according to a later commentary from Tarek, at that moment, half the women in the city of Pittsburgh with damp panties turned their affections to the next most eligible bachelor in the NBA. His mother disputes this claim. Epilogue. Willow snuggled onto Chase's lap, wearing his two favorite things. Her wedding ring, which turned out to be the simple gold band her father had given her mother in their early days, before he could afford a diamond. For luck, she had said. But where Chase and Willow were going, they didn't need luck. And his jersey, only his jersey. She scrolled through the latest NBA game menu, controller in her hand. She had a few hours before she had to meet her investors at the Cordial Cafe. And the last thing on Chase's mind, as he swelled beneath her, was playing a video game. Still, she insisted as she ground out a torturous wiggle of her bare ass over his fly. He selected the Sacramento Kings. She selected the Pittsburgh Alloys, then promptly traded away number 28 for a rookie from the Lakers. Chase reached for her sides and tickled her into near extinction. The controller slipped from her hand. This time, when she squirmed and writhed for her freedom, gasping for air around her hiccup-like humor fit, nearly sliding off the worn leather fabric, he caught her lips and didn't let her go until they had settled the matchup under the most pleasurable of conditions. Even if a creepy patched-together Quetz watched from his place of honor on the wall. This has been Celi-bet, the Solomon Brothers series, Volume 2, written by Leslie North, narrated by Rebecca Roberts. Copyright 2017 by Relay Publishing. Production copyright 2017 by Relay Publishing.